Announcing his executive council after being sworn in, the KZN Premier allocated 4 portfolios to the IFP, 3 to the ANC, 2 to the DA, and 1 to the NFP. The ANC's Nomagugu Simelane has been retained at Health, Siboniso Duma is the new Transport MEC, and Siphohlo Muka is the Education MEC. Provincial DA leader Francois Rogers is the new Finance MEC, and Martin Dreyer, also from the DA, is the Public Works and Human Settlements MEC. The IFP's Reverend Musa Zondi is the new Economic Development MEC, while Reverend Thulasizwe Buthelezi is the Cooperative Governance MEC. Tembeni Mtweta is at Agriculture, and Mtomuhle Kaula is the new Sports, Arts and Culture MEC. The NFP's Mbali Shinga will lead social development. Police in KZN have activated a 72-hour mobilization of maximum resources in search of suspects who shot and killed 6 people in Ezakeni near Ladysmith. Police say 12 people were traveling in a bakkie last night when another vehicle approached and its occupants opened fire on the bakkie. Police spokesperson Robert Netsiwunda says 2 children under the age of 5 are among the deceased.
12 people were traveling in a bakkie on Helpmaker Road when another vehicle approached and its occupants opened fire at the bakkie. 2 men and 3 more women survived the shooting with injuries and were rushed to hospital. A 21-year-old woman escaped the shooting unharmed. The motive of the killing is unknown at this stage, and police are appealing to anyone who might have information regarding the whereabouts of the suspects to contact the nearest police station or call the Crime Stop number 08600 10111.
And Thailand's Senate has passed a landmark bill that will allow same-sex marriages after years of campaigning for a change in the law. The lower house has already agreed on the legislation. More from the BBC's Mickey Bristow.
When it comes into force, Thailand will become the first country in Southeast Asia to allow same-sex unions. Only 2 other places in Asia, Taiwan and Nepal, have similar laws. Thailand is already known for its vibrant LGBT community and its tolerance. This legislation is a culmination of more than a decade of campaigning by activists and politicians, with the current Prime Minister Seta Tawisin a particular supporter.
The top story at 3 o'clock, dignitaries have started arriving in the country ahead of the inauguration of the President of South Africa tomorrow. For SAFM News, Kimudupima Khalemeli.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Erasmus names his first Springbok team for 2024 and Premier League 2024-25 fixtures announced, while Jaguars coach confident ahead of the TNL final. I'll have more details on this at 3:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.4 FM in Durban. The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one Outsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to phone Outsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Teigedal, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called Outsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
It seems like I have not been here for a long time. In fact, I was last on air on Friday, but 3 days, public holiday, Eid celebrations, and suddenly it seems like, it's 4 days ago and it's a long time. But anyway, in that period, we've had lots of things happening. We've had effectively a new president who will be inaugurated tomorrow, that, and many other things happening in the country. We also have now a new KZN premier, and we have a speaker, we have a deputy speaker in parliament, so lots of things happen. All of that reflects on the National Pulse, and therefore that oft-repeated question to you: what for you drives, or what for you moves the National Pulse today? Every day we have a different answer, I think. 086 000 2032. If you wish to call in, you can WhatsApp, text or voice note me 0614 104 107. My name is Ashraf Garda, and welcome indeed to the National Pulse. And I'll tell you what, let me start with this, right? So it's so interesting on Kathy's show earlier on. I heard her, play a quote from Siya Kolisi, the Springbok World Cup winning captain, right? And he spoke about your why, your reason for being, right? And I felt I just had to, amplify that. Because, the why and the reason for being can be applied to all things in life, right? And then, of course, the important question that Kathy asked at the time is like, so what is South Africa's why? Why do we exist? What's our plan? Now, if you know me well enough, you would know that I often talk about South Africa's why in so many of the talks that I give, right? So, as we move now to post-election South Africa on the eve of the inauguration of the president, I think it's worth asking this question, that the big buzzword is not the government of national unity or coalition or something else. It has to be our national purpose. So when we say why South Africa? Well, what is our national purpose? And if we can agree, singularly on our national purpose and galvanize an entire nation around thinking and feeling strongly and dearly and passionately about one thing more than any other, and get an entire nation's activities galvanized around that, then maybe, just maybe, we would be in a position where we truly serve and reflect the concept of we the people. Because once a country adopts an entire country, and understanding a country's national purpose, we then are taking one huge building block and placing it on this journey of best reflecting what is best for all the people of the country. So I hope you got that. Priority number one for the president, the deputy president, all the politicians in this new administration that we have. I would encourage you, I would implore you to put your mind to thinking about what's the one thing that we truly can embrace as our national purpose. And I look forward to your suggestions. What is our national purpose, and how do we drive that national purpose as a collective, singularly forward? I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point. Now, what's yours?
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Well, let me have it. I certainly want to know what you think our national purpose ought to be, and very importantly, how then do we drive that national purpose? If you have a comment right away, do so. 0614 104 107 in WhatsApp, text or voice notes. By the way, if you're listening to us on live streaming and also want to tweet out on social media, so Twitter or the X platform, as well as on Facebook, to the many people who are doing that right away, they do it all the time, you know that. Just give us a shout out. Where you're listening from, what's your name, and what is it that you're doing or what you feel strongly about. Perhaps tell me what you think the national purpose should be. So use the hashtag the National Pulse as well. So talking about purpose and where we sit as a country, first up we talked to Dr. David Matsanga. Now, he's from Uganda. He's written an open letter to South Africa's President, Cyril Ramaphosa, warning him about what he terms the hidden emerging conflict in South Africa. He says a lot more, but we thought, you know what, we need to speak to him about just that. So Dr. David Matsanga was a political analyst, an expert on diplomatic relations. You're welcome to the National Pulse. Hi.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this very, very important debate for the history of Africa.
Absolutely. Now, we speak to you at a time on the eve of the inauguration of the president. It's a new day, but it's certainly not a new president. You understand, you've actually put down a letter, you've penned a letter to President Ramaphosa. So perhaps give me just maybe 5 bullet points, very short one-liners about what you've said.
The most serious and important thing is the emerging conflict. The time of hatred is emerging. We had healed this hatred in 1994. We came out as a rainbow country. We see faults breaking up. Hatred. Reconciliation seemed to have gone out of the window. Speeches, inflammatory speeches. A brewing discontent. Poverty, increment of poverty, rates of unemployment. So I wrote a letter to President Ramaphosa, a great friend of mine. As you know, I'm an admirer of liberation movements across Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I like liberation movements. I've defended Zimbabwe. I've defended all of them. I like to see a smooth transition without violence. But the leadership of the people of South Africa, some of them, the statements that they are issuing, whether white or black, or yellow, some of them are not very good for the current situation. We are returning to a situation where we are bringing in race, color, political affiliation, religion. That is why I penned that letter to President Ramaphosa.
So what you're saying, in fact, there's a lot of othering taking place. You know, whether the othering is of a tribe or whether the othering is of a you know, as you said, race or color, and you're saying all of that does not augur well for the country. Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think that this appears to have escalated?
First of all, you can see that we had taken South Africa, and as you are aware, if South Africa coughs, the whole Africa catches a cough, because it is an example of very good democracy. A democracy transition taking part since 1994. Smooth transition, without conflicts, without people dying on the streets, without shops being banned. You are the only continent on African country on the African continent that votes and returns home to hear the results. But when you see this simmering something underneath, a current of discontent, statements made by leaders, Zuma making statements, Ramaphosa making statements, ANC making statements, DA making statements, different factions making statements, the center leads to state of despondency. And that state of despondency can create a conflict. So as a conflict resolution expert, I see the danger that why is it that the president of Republic of South Africa elect, why doesn't he now look at how he can bring all these brothers together, all these sisters together, and put them together and ask, what can we do for South Africa?
Okay.
Not to take personal egos that can lead South Africa to the turmoil.
Okay, you're saying why can we not bring everybody together? Is the attempt at a government of national unity not just that, an attempt to bring different parties and people together, notwithstanding that some parties are not in it?
Some parties cannot be in not every democracy is not that way. Democracy, not all parties can be in one ball. It is impossible. A fragile, a grand coalition everywhere. You have seen in Israel how it collapses every 6 months. So a grand coalition of such nature can destabilize South Africa. So it is important for us to talk to all people, to accommodate all people, all shades of opinion, without some inflammatory statements I have been very critical. If you read my letter, you will find that there are instances where I have said all parties, what leads to all parties is poverty. Since 1994, poverty has been the hinge point of how South Africa can move out of the poverty to create employment, to create services, to create health systems, to create infrastructure, to add on many other things. So my letter was purely to warn to alert President Ramaphosa that I can't you now that you have been elected.
Okay, I know it's an open letter. I know it's an open letter, but since you said you know him personally, did he respond to you?
He's going to. It went out a few hours ago.
Okay.
I have done quite a lot for this continent of South Africa, of Africa. I always write on ICC. I wrote a letter. I said, allow Putin to come to South Africa. There is nothing. ICC is a bulldog. It cannot bite. It will make statements. Okay. It won't hurt you. If you want to take a decision, I have stood firm with President Ramaphosa on the question of falafala as a lawyer. I said there was no complainant on the question of the money. It is on the public morality. That was the point.
Okay.
So these are some of the things to tell a friend. It's better to tell a friend that you are naked than to tell a friend you are doing very well.
That's a good point.
I love South Africa. I love the people of South Africa. But I don't love the type of hatred that is beginning to grow against blacks, whites against blacks against whites, discrimination, talking about classes. This will break the rainbow country of Nelson Mandela that he would have wished, wherever he is near the Mecca, would have wished to see a country flourish under all colors. Okay,
two things very, very quickly. You speak about the hidden emerging conflict. Give me a brief description of what that means.
Already you can see the statements of Zuma. These sentiments can go back to to other people who are not employed. Millions and millions of South Africans, jobless. Those sentiments can inspire people to come up in a negative way. To pick up, some people are even talking of picking up guns. Are you not seeing it? Why should we pick up guns? To fight who now? We have fought a war. We have contributed to South Africa ourselves. All Africa contributed to South Africa to become a nation free from all types of discrimination. So if you are discriminating a white person today, then you are also creating apartheid.
Okay, question, last thing, and you got 30 seconds. You spoke about a unity of purpose. It's interesting. I opened the show with talking about South Africa needs to have one singular national purpose. When you talk about unity of purpose, what would that be in 30 seconds?
Unity of purpose means you look at South Africa as a model of Africa. We look at you as our model. Therefore, you must unite for the sake of a nation. There comes a time when a nation is bigger than individuals. Rise up and become part and parcel of a better, peaceful, non-violent South Africa. That is my call, and that is what my letter made.
And there we are, Dr. David Matsanga certainly saying it the way he sees it, and that warning coming with a lot of affection, I think, for South Africa, as is made very, very clear. Well, thank you for your time, Dr. David Matsanga, political analyst and expert on diplomatic relations based in Uganda. Now, what do you think about what he just said? Which aspects do you want to pick out on? He spoke at length, I think, about issues of race and hatred and white and black and all that sort of thing. You may want to pick up on that.
You
and
send
the broader
me my
issue
clip,
of the national purpose, right?
Thank
you tell
you.
me.
I hope I did
061 104 107.
Are you ready to empower yourself with an accredited tertiary qualification? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning programs will set you up for success. Whether you're balancing work and family or you're a school leaver who must work to support yourself and your studies, Stadio offers access to high-quality, affordable qualifications in law, teacher education, commerce, admin and management, policing, and more. Mid-year applications are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Not every grand idea turns out the way it was envisioned. You know what I'm talking about. That attempted upside-down kiss inspired by that superhero in the pouring rain that resulted in pneumonia and broken bones. That Tokyo drifting that ended up in an embarrassing explanation to your insurance. That online order going through your partner's phone. Hi, cut. Join Richard Hammond as he takes you on a journey of clips from the main show that highlights some of their boldest stunt attempts, a number of which didn't go as planned. Tune into Top Gear, Ambitious and Rubbish, Fridays at 9 p.m. to channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Right, now you should do well to take a heed of this. 37-year-old Toboko got a really great deal on his car insurance premium from OutSurance. He pays an amazing 762 rands per month to insure his white 2018 Ford Figo Ambiente. He now has extra cash every month to go out for a meal with his friends. Get an OutSurance quote today. SMS OUT to 30754. That's OUT to 30754 now. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So where South Africa's election has just ended and we look at the fallout from that, there's another one coming up, right? The one in the USA. Now, the two oldest candidates ever to run for US president will meet on the 27th of June for a televised debate. Goodness, we wish we had that in South Africa, right? So while Biden accuses his rival of being unhinged and a danger to democracy, Trump accuses his opponent of being senile and corrupt. And of course, the electorate has to choose one of the two. Take a listen to this Reuters report.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump are set to meet for a televised debate on June 27th unlike any other. One accuses his rival of being unhinged and a danger to democracy.
It's clear that when he lost in 2020, something literally snapped in this guy.
While the other accuses his opponent of being senile and corrupt.
He can't talk, he can't walk. Can't find his way off a stage.
With months to go until the November 5th presidential election, many voters are still undecided. That raises the stakes for the debate, which many may view for possible moments of drama, rather than for policy discussions between the Democratic president and his Republican challenger. Here's what to look out for in the first presidential debate. Biden and Trump, at 81 and 78 respectively, are the oldest candidates to ever run for president. Both are known for their tempers and impatience. They're used to commanding the stage and have both been president, which means they'll likely see little reason to yield to the other.
Go left. Would you shut up, man? Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Biden rattled Trump during their first debate in the 2020 race, leading Trump into what was viewed as a poor performance.
I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
that's
than he
all right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
does
than
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on.
This time, Trump may try to get under Biden's skin by mentioning the recent conviction of the president's son, Hunter, on lying about his drug use to illegally buy a gun.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown.
But Trump has to make sure not to come across like a bully to moderate voters. For Biden, it may be tempting for him to play up Trump's recent conviction for involvement in a hush money scheme, but one expert said that could allow Trump to paint himself as a victim of political persecution.
I just went through a rigged trial in New York.
For Trump, the danger lies in saying things that underscore Biden's argument that he's a threat to democratic norms. For example, he suggested he'll use the Justice Department to target his political enemies.
When he says he wants to be a dictator, I believe him.
Democrats point to Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election and his role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Political experts say both candidates should focus on issues that hit home with voters, like the high cost of living. Both Biden and Trump could be rusty, Trump refused to participate in the 2024 Republican primary debates, a decision that did him no harm as he easily beat all his rivals for the party's nomination. Biden also has not been on a debate stage in almost 4 years. The debate takes place in Atlanta, Georgia on June 27th, hosted by CNN.
Well, there you are. Fascinating preview of that debate ahead of that election coming up later this year. Let's get to some of the callers. I'll get WhatsApp, text as well as voice notes in a moment. Mandla in Cape Town, hi.
Yes, my brother.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. You want to talk about purpose, something I feel strongly about. What's our national purpose?
Yeah, our national purpose is to fight poverty. Our people are living in bad conditions. I just met the other guy now. He's wearing torn shoes and his clothing is torn up. Where is the dignity of the people in South Africa that are poor? That guy got a family to feed. He cannot take care of himself. He's wealthy, he's healthy, he can work, he's ready to work. He says he's coming from the councillor. He told the councillor that he needs a job. And the councillor told him there's a long list of people that must get a job. It's not him alone. So the government must implement, this government, new government that is coming now, must implement basic income grant. The way they fought that disease, corona, they amassed billions and billions of rand from the private sector to fight corona. The same spirit must be there to fight poverty.
Okay.
The other day, a guy called in from Pretoria in that program of Oliver Dixon.
Yeah.
From 10 to 12. He was crying. He said he lost a job and he doesn't have food. For 3 days, he hasn't gotten food for 3 days. Where's the dignity of poor people in South Africa?
Well,
so
I think
priority.
I think you're spot on, Manda. Let's leave it at that. You're right. The priority. Well, you see, maybe here's a slight difference. I think poverty is not a priority. Poverty is a crisis. That's the reality. The priority then must be how do we eradicate poverty, for example. So when we talk about national purpose, we have different ways. In fact, we don't agree on national purpose, and I'm suggesting that we find a way that we can collectively agree on national purpose, and that what we agree on and implement will eradicate that what you've just mentioned, the issue of poverty. And you're absolutely right about that conversation with that caller. When people have nothing, we who have something have no idea what it is to have nothing. So what do you think our national purpose should be? 3:30, here's the news headlines with, as always, Madupi. Hi, Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your news headlines this hour, Telkom has reported a big jump of 1.9 billion rand in full-year profits, recording an increase of over 100%. Dignitaries have started arriving in the country ahead of the inauguration of the President of South Africa tomorrow, and the UN Human Rights Chief has warned that the situation in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem is dramatically deteriorating. A full news update coming up 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the presidential inauguration will be taking place on Wednesday in Pretoria, so there'll be extensive road closures which will apply from 3 a.m. on Wednesday until 6 a.m. on Thursday through Hatfield, Eastwood, Sunnyside and the Union Buildings areas. The M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road. In Bedfordview, the N3 southbound has a crash reported near Van Buren Road. The N12 R24 westbound is queuing on both routes towards Giluli's interchange. In Pretoria, SK Mpahleli Drive northbound is queuing near Potco Depot, and the N14 northbound has delays towards the R101 interchange. In KZN, the M7 has roadworks with traffic restrictions towards the Bel Air Road, Wakesley Road junction Junction. The N2 is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The M13 eastbound has roadworks with traffic restrictions at the N3 Paradise Valley interchange, and the M4 has roadworks with traffic restrictions at Tongaat Beach, so you're asked to expect delays. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Harrell Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road. Govan Becky Road has roadworks with traffic restrictions in that Hanover Park area reported, and Veltervreden Drive is closed in Mitchell's Plain between Cedar Avenue and Spine Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, we have the Minister of Sport in to me, and this time round we're talking rugby.
We're talking rugby. Welcome back, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon to you and our listeners. Yes, we start things off with rugby. Springbok prop Vincent Koch will earn his 50th Test cap on Saturday when the Boks face Wales at Twickenham. Koch was named in Rassie Erasmus Matchday 23 that will be captained by a flanker Pieter-Steph du Toit and features 4 uncapped players. In terms of those uncapped players, it is Adel van der Merwe and Jordan Hendrikse, who are the 2 uncapped players named in the run-on team, while Ben Jason Dixon and Sasha Feinberg Mgomezulu are the 2 new faces on the replacement bench. Meanwhile, Lions playmaker Sanele Nohamba has been named URC Player of the Season 2024 after a fantastic campaign with the Johannesburg-based franchise. Nohamba edged out Bulls duo Kurtley Arendse and Cameron Hanekom in winning the coveted award. The 25-year-old played all 18 regular season games for the Emirates Lions, who just missed out on a spot on the playoffs in the final day. Then in football, SuperSport United have parted ways with Siyanda Xulu after just 1 season with the club. The 32-year-old joined United at the beginning of the season after leaving Azerbaijan, and he's reportedly leaving due to his lack of game time because his contract was set to expire in June 2025. Elsewhere, Manchester United will kick off the new Premier League season with a clash against Fulham at Old Trafford on the 16th of June, while Manchester City begin their title defence at Chelsea in the headline match of the weekend on the 18th of August, with Crystal Palace playing Brentford earlier on and West Ham visit Aston Villa on Saturday. Then Leicester City hosts the first Monday night football of the season when they welcome Tottenham Hotspur. Anything's off with women in sports. Gauteng Jaguars coach Roseanne Matthys says that she's quite confident in her thorough performance analysis of the Free State Crinums ahead of the Telkom Netball League Division A final. The Jags look forward to playing their 11th final in the domestic league after securing their spot through a tightly contested 48-46 win over the Southern Stinks at Ellis Park Arena in Johannesburg yesterday.
I'm happy that we're playing the Crinums. I think having another Gauteng derby, we've had 2 already, and it's an emotional game, which I don't know why, but it's always a lot of emotions attached to the game, and such a huge hype and so physical, tremendously physical game against the Fireballs. So the Crinums plays a little bit more structured game. So I'm looking forward to it.
Right, with that said, it's a wrap from my side. I'll have more in the next hour.
Before I let you go, just a quick one. I haven't seen the Springbok team properly because it just got announced. Have you had a chance to look in, and how does it compare with that World Cup winning team?
One thing I know is that Siya Kolisi is not in there.
I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely not in there because it was a clash in calendar with his team and the Springboks. But it's a mixture of youth and experience. Yeah. As I said, 4 new players that we can look forward to. But we have the likes of Pieter-Steph du Toit being captain. It'll be interesting to see how he's going to captain. Yeah.
And just lastly, think about this. How many days for the Olympic Games? Because you need to get to France, remember?
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about it. Okay, you go and work it out and tell me just
38 days.
Oh, you know it already. 38 days to the Olympics. We need to get to France in some way or the other. There we are. More sport in an hour.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean, and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the city of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Now you can get private banking levels of service from Auto & General. They've just launched their private advisory service, and if you have more than a car to insure and your combined cover is valued at more than 1 million rand, you qualify. To celebrate, they're giving you the chance to win in the Auto & General Combine and Qualify competition. Visit safm.co.za, complete the entry form, and we could be calling you live on air. You'll be presented with various scenarios of insurable items. If you combine the correct two that meet the qualifying criteria for a private advisor, you'll win 5,000 Rand. Plus, if you get an obligation-free insurance quote from Auto & General, you'll get an extra 1,000 Rand. Visit safm.co.za and enter now. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM.
In fact, lots of people commenting on some things we've discussed here. Here's one from Alex in Standerton saying, "Hi Ashraf, do we have to be told by someone from outside South Africa that Zuma wants to plunge this country into a civil war?" His remarks have all the hallmarks. Well, that's your opinion, and you can contest that opinion in terms of what the guest we had, of course, Dr. David Matsanga said. Let's talk about something more imminent right now, which is the inauguration of President Ramaphosa again. Sophie McQueen has got all the hard work because that big day happens tomorrow, remember. She's the SABC International News Editor. Sophie, it's always good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Thank you, Ashraf. Good.
So you've got this very fancy task of keeping score of who arrives in the country, right? What a privilege.
Well, I don't know whether it's a privilege or it's the nature of the job, because these are international guests and leaders, heads of state and government, the people that I deal with most of the time, and therefore they are my clients.
They certainly are. So who's arrived today, and who else is due to arrive?
Well, the Vice President of Cuba has arrived, and he visited Freedom Park this afternoon, where Kaya Kumalo was. And as you know, that Freedom Park, there's a depiction, or perhaps one can say a memorial site or story in relation with the Battle of Quito Carnival, where countries such as Cuba and Russia assisted countries in the southern region to attain freedom in that battle. And therefore, most of the time when they are in the country, the Cubans, they often visit Freedom Park just to reconnect with those who passed on during that battle. We also saw the Prime Minister of Burundi. As you know, that Burundi is the chair of East Africa Community, and the president couldn't make it. The Prime Minister represented his country, but also because of its position as the chair of East Africa, they are here. On the other hand, we've seen the arrival of the president of Namibia here at Waterkloof, and also the president of Zimbabwe, while the president of Mauritius arrived at OR International Airport. And we expect the arrival of the president of Angola or Mozambique at 4 p.m. Okay. Angola quite important because Angola is the current chair of SADC.
Absolutely. So most of the countries you've mentioned are from the Southern Africa region, SADC, right? Any other representatives from, say, North Africa, Middle East, Europe, USA, Asia?
IGAD, I know that the president of South Sudan will be here later today as the chair of IGAD. We also expect the president of Nigeria. Currently, Nigeria is the chair of ECOWAS. and therefore he is expected to arrive later today. Tanzania, which is part of SADC, but also the incoming chair of SADC, organ on politics, defense, and security. And you know that President Mnangagwa will be the chair of SADC in 2 months' time. And therefore you can see that the format is your regional organizations and also countries in the SADC region. And with China, they've sent a senior envoy who is expected to arrive later today on behalf of President Xi Jinping. And most of other countries, particularly from the north, they will be represented by their diplomats in South Africa who are accredited to work in South Africa, your high commissioners and your ambassadors.
Has any country, are you aware of any country that's refused to come or not been invited specifically?
We don't have such details in terms of countries not being invited, but we know that because of the outcome of elections, it was quite a tricky one to prepare, but they were able to ensure that those who are near and those who are chairing different regional organizations on the continent, including the chair of the African Union Commission, they are invited. You'd recall that confirmation in terms of the date only came out on Saturday, and therefore it was quite a short notice. When you look at countries such as Malawi, they had bereavement. You look at countries such as Zambia. The president of Zambia is currently in Scotland. I think it was arranged even before this inauguration. And therefore it was quite tricky. When it started last year, build up to 30 years of democracy, I was hoping that the world will again descend on South Africa, just to recall and remember and celebrate 30 years of democracy. You'd recall during Nelson Mandela 30 years ago, almost the whole globe converged at Union buildings. Arafat, Gaddafi, Castro, many people. But this time around, it was not to be.
Well, because the world has changed and there's a sense of normality about what we do going to the 7th administration. Sophie Mokoena, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you're going to be particularly busy over the next 48 hours or so. I have no doubt about that. Not just for the inauguration, but perhaps a chance to get to speak to many of the dignitaries arriving here because they really are in that beat around foreign affairs or foreign relations. Sophie Mokoena, we'll talk to her maybe sometime tomorrow as well, I'm sure. Some comments. I'll get your comments, WhatsApp, text, voice note, and your calls after this.
Call us on 086 000 2032. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we've certainly had lots of people wanting to comment about many of the issues, including, what our purpose should be. Let me just see, however, some people responding to that first conversation I had of the open letter from the thought leader from Uganda. Here it is.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This man is on point. That shows us other countries how decisive they are. In Botterville, the man is on point. Thanks, Ashraf.
Oh, there we are. Nice. Thanks for being like 30 seconds. It just helps if we get shorter ones, and that means we can speak to many people indeed, and really appreciate it. Well, there's an inauguration coming up tomorrow. Here's a comment on that.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Afternoon, South Africa and everybody else. I was just greeting South Africa and, just anticipating for the inauguration hope everything goes well. But then as for the open letter, I'm not sure of the tone and everything. I don't know.
Well, I first of all, thanks for just phoning in and greeting us. It's really nice. So hello to you as well, right? As far as the open letter is concerned, I think you're right. There's a lot of it that speaks about absolute divisions, and I don't think it's as pronounced as that. We differ, as many countries differ, even from the same race, for example. They all differ. But we somehow get things together. So I hear what you're saying, right? Okay, here you are. Another one on democracy.
Afternoon, Asaf. Hope you're well. It's Sonia from Centurion. If you have a look what's happening in our political landscape, you've got a bunch of parties banding together on the one side, and you've got a bunch of parties banding together on the other side. And there's a split down the middle, which actually brings our democracy to a, if you can put it in broad terms, two-party democracy. Because if the ANC and DA govern, the EFF and the MK party are going to be the unofficial, official opposition, if that makes any sense.
Well,
and I see that's how this thing's going. There's a line in the middle, and you're either on this side with these parties, you're on that side with those parties. It doesn't matter how hardcore you want to be, you're going to have to end up making that choice, so you're going to be left out alone in the political wilderness. Anyway, thanks for a great show.
Well, it's an interesting one. You say two-party democracy, because two-party democracy. The reality is South Africa has got, 18 parties or so in parliament. We're just talking nationally, right? And the reality is most countries are two-party democracies. The USA comes to mind because we spoke about them earlier on, predominantly two-party, the same with the UK. But then many other countries, infactably, many of them have one-party democracy, however contradictory that may sound like, right? But yeah, some of them two parties, three parties. So when you talk about a two-party democracy, hey, it's not true, firstly, but that's not a bad thing, because the reality is that's the norm. The reality in this case, we actually have a multi-party democracy, never mind who you voted for, right? Okay, here's another one about the politicians.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the SAFM listeners. It's very sad what's going on in South Africa. There is no why or what really has to happen, because though there is a common ground, but there is no common goal. You can see that most of the political party leaders, all they wanted was a seat or two in parliament. It's not about the people, it's not about us. And this is very sad that South Africans are allowing this thing.
Well, thanks for that, Slano. But I think you're right about that part. There's no common goal, and that's what when I talk about national purpose, I'm not talking about highlighting the biggest problems in the country. Poverty or hunger is like top of the list. That's not the goal. That's the problem. Where's the unity of purpose? So when we talk about national purpose, it's something that we have to rely and rally around each other to do just that. Here's another one. Ashraf, my BP goes off the chart when I hear that we can only afford OVHD, top box and no extra channels. Won't be able to watch the ceremony tomorrow. It's a sad day for us as voters from Kathy and Peter Maritzburg. Let's get to Michael in Klebecha. Hi, Michael.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Yeah. Just a quick one, my brother.
Go ahead.
Why is the media, right, beating this drum of a government of national unity? I think the media is not doing us in service at all. It's not a government of national unity. It's a coalition. I think the media should call it for what it is. It's a coalition. The media should stop saying a government of national unity. You can only form a government of national unity if one party had a majority vote. And then you invite others to come along in the name of a goodwill. Nobody had 50% plus one. So it's a coalition. So let's call it that, instead of labeling it a government of national unity, because it's not.
Okay. Michael, let me give you my response. Thanks for that call. Well, I mean, here's my quick one. First of all, let's get this right. This government of national unity is completely different to 1994. So let's not even make that comparison. It's completely different. However, why is the media calling it this? You know why? Because that's what Parliament's calling it. So, for example, if you play in a tournament, right? I'm watching the television set now. It's called the Telkom National League or the Netball League. So we call it the Telkom Netball League because that's what the organizers are calling it. So in this case, the organizers are calling it the Government of National Unity. Now that's the official title. Whether we then, you and I, agree that it is or it isn't, is another conversation. And I think for all intents and purposes, you may be right that this is a multi-party coalition and not necessarily a government of national unity. But it doesn't mean we must eradicate the title, because when we speak about those parties that have signatories to it, there will always be signatories to a government of national unity. Hopefully that makes sense to you, Michael. Thanks for that call. Right, we're going to talk about the issue of energy sustainability, which I think is really important right after this.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM.
Right, we'll be chatting, by the way, talking about the Government of National Unity. We're going to have a response from COSATU on their comments on the GNU and the South African Medical Association about similar things. So fascinating. We cover all sides on the show, absolutely. Given Makushe, as always, good afternoon to the team from the National Pulse listening from Pretoria. Great that you've done that. By the way, all of you, besides calling in, you can tweet extensively. Just use the hashtag The National Pulse and then tag SAFM Radio on Twitter and tag me as well. Well, Twitter, the X platform, tag me, Ashraf Garda. I'll certainly pick it up, right? Okay, let's get into something else that you should be paying real attention to, and that's the issue of, we know the issue of energy in South Africa is absolutely key, right? Now, it's public knowledge South Africa has an electricity crisis of sorts, whether you want to call it load shedding or load reduction, I don't know. The question is, here's one interesting one. A report by the International Institute for Sustainable Development, which is the IISD. Well, they identified a broad lack of understanding of battery-related opportunities in terms of solving our energy crisis. Really? What does that mean? Richard Halsey with me, policy advisor on the South African energy team at the International Institute for Sustainable Development. Richard, good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So broadly, you're saying what? There's a lack of understanding in terms of opportunities, and the word battery comes up. Tell me more.
Yes, so what we're talking about here, there's different types of batteries. Now, a lot of consumers, whether they be residential or industrial, have started buying their own batteries for their homes or their businesses. So in that sense, people understand the values that batteries can add. But when we look at a national or at a municipal level, we're talking about big batteries which are located on the grid. That is something fairly new. The Eskom has only just built their first grid battery, and worldwide they've only been about the last 5 years. So it's that type of battery, the type of battery that's located on the grid and is for grid supply of electricity. That's the new player on the block, and the one where there is a lot of the services are not quite understood, a lot of the financial models are not yet understood. So there's a lot that needs to be done to see how they can play a role in helping South Africa's national and municipal energy system.
So as you say there's a lack of understanding, right? So who is it that doesn't understand it? And if they understood it and implemented or used the batteries you talk about, how would things change for us?
So this came out of a whole range of interviews we did for a research report, and the lack of understanding is at a range of levels. So in some cases, it's at government level, just because the technology is new. The cost has been coming down rapidly in the last few years, but it's not yet mainstream. In other cases, it's around at municipal level. It's often just human resources, like it's having the people to now engage with this new topic. And in yet other cases, even researchers and energy modeling teams, it's just the capability of the software to fully understand at very small time intervals how batteries can help. And this is improving. It is just, it is something that the more we as a country learn about it, the more we can identify how best to use these batteries.
What about in terms of the usage? I mean, what is your assessment overall in terms of the studies you've done, in terms of where do we stay or where do we lay with our energy crisis right now? Because there's a sense of crisis, then there's no load shedding, so maybe there's no crisis. Maybe just election related, and it'll all come back the next day, and it hasn't come. But there's also load shedding. We ourselves are having huge difficulty understanding exactly what the state of play is.
Yeah, so in terms of batteries, which is what we've been looking at, is what they do is they give you a sense of resilience and flexibility. And this is what a lot of residential customers have come to notice, is say you put some solar panels on your roof to help when there was those times of extensive load shedding. That only helped you during the day. So if there's load shedding at night and you didn't have a battery, you were still didn't have any power. So it's that same kind of sense at a national level. What batteries allow you to do is, other than providing services to Eskom to help regulate the grid and improve grid functioning, that ability to store energy and use it at a later point has a lot of value. And residents in the city of Cape Town will be aware that during those periods of extensive load shedding, they were often one stage less than the rest of the country, and that was because of the Steenbos Dam, which is a pump storage dam, but it acts in the same way as a battery. It gives you that buffer to draw that energy out when you need it.
Okay. What about, so who's embracing it? Is there whether it's government, whether it's private business, now providing solutions beyond just Eskom, is anybody using it that you can tell me about?
So, I mean, internationally, if we look, there are like South Australia, which is a state in Australia, and California are world leaders on this. They are really ramping up their battery usage, these grid batteries we're talking about, the ones located on the grid. In South Africa, as I said, it's very new. Eskom's first grid battery only came online at the end of last year. There is a procurement process underway nationally as part of the Integrated Resource Plan, which is coming online, but they're several years delayed. They were meant to come online in 2022, and they're only just procuring them now. So it's the several years worth of delay. So they are coming. It's not as fast as was initially planned. Several municipalities, City of Cape Town, George, Kualeni, a lot of them have done a lot of work in their planning. It's just now getting to the stage of actually buying them and building them.
Policy, thanks for your time. Policy advisor on the South African Energy Team at the International Institute for Sustainable Development. A range of comments we've had. Here's one on national purpose. That may, surprise you. I don't know.
Hi, Ashraf Garda from Mafikeng. I think as a country, we do not have a national purpose. We are a very dishonest group of individuals, and we really do not have anything driving us. And I think if we were to develop a national purpose, it should be rooted on the basis of at least honesty. When we analyze our problems, we know that what our problems are, and we must analyze them honestly. We need to look at our country, honestly analyze it, and come up with a purpose that will, unite all of us and drive all of us to do better.
Well, I concur with you. Let me give you my further thoughts on that, just on the other side of the news. I want to just add to that because I think it's that important about, do we have a national purpose? How do we achieve or embrace one? Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Mudupi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda. The top stories this hour: huge profits are recorded at Telkom, and dignitaries start arriving for the inauguration tomorrow. A very good afternoon. Telkom has reported a big jump of 1.9 billion rand in 4-year profits, recording an increase of over 100%. The company released its financial results for the year ended 31 March 2024, attributing the gains to the group's data-led strategy. In the results, Telkom recorded a 1.6% rise in group revenue to 43.2 billion rand, with mobile service revenue up by 6.8% to 19 billion, mainly driven by the demand for mobile data and fiber services. Telkom CEO Serame Taukubong.
It was a very good performance for us, really driven by growth from our new generation platforms, particularly focused on our mobile revenue, which saw 6.8% growth in service revenue, entrenching our data-driven propositions, further supported by growth in our fiber business. So really entrenching Telkom as a leader in data-driven propositions in the market. I think the industry has faced some challenging inroads. I think what's key for us is that the long-term investment that Telkom has made, because we've been investing in the future, preparing ourselves for the high data demand.
Dignitaries have started arriving in the country ahead of the inauguration of the President of South Africa. Most of the leaders who will be attending the ceremony are from the SADC region. The Dabazotetsi is at the Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria.
The heads of state and governments who will attend the inauguration are from different countries in the SADC region and leaders of the regional organizations in Africa. The AU will be represented by the AU Commission's chairperson, Musa Faki Mahamat. Cuba has sent its Vice President, Salvador Valdez Misa, while other countries around the world will be represented by their ambassadors and high commissioners. Dita SABC News, Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria.
A quick reminder that the inauguration of the President-elect will be broadcast on SABC News Live on SABC Plus tomorrow. The proceedings will also be streamed live on the SABC News YouTube channel and SABC Radio. Former Cape Town top cop and child killer Marius van der Westhuizen has made yet another attempt at being granted parole. He appeared in the Malmesbury Correctional Centre on his third attempt at freedom. Van der Westhuizen was the acting station commander at Claremont Police Station at the time of the incident in 2006. He shot his 3 children, aged 16, 5 and 21 months, in front of his wife Charlotte to punish her for not listening to him. She is opposing the parole request, saying it'll be no justice for her children.
As a police officer myself, you know the saying, when you do the crime, you do the time. He's currently in prison for 13 years. Now, 13 years for 3 murders. Murders of 3 innocent little children is not justice. I do not think the community in this country wants more child murderers.
A 28-year-old woman has been mauled to death by 4 pit bulls at Namibia Square in Bloemfontein. Police say they rushed to the scene yesterday and declared the victim dead with severe injuries on the lower parts of her body after she was bitten by the dogs. Police spokesperson Thabo Kovane says they had to put down the 3 dogs and took the other one along with some puppies to the local SPCA. He says a case of culpable homicide has been opened. And the UN Human Rights Chief has warned that the situation in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem is dramatically deteriorating. Volker Turk says that more than 500 Palestinians had been killed by Israeli soldiers or settlers since the start of the Gaza war in October last year. He says 133 of them were children. Turk also says that there had been what he described as unconscionable death and suffering in Gaza.
Last March, I spoke of the right to peace. Since then, conflicts have only intensified. Killings and injuries of civilians have become a daily occurrence. Children shot at, hospitals bombed, heavy artillery launched on entire communities, all along with hateful, divisive and dehumanizing rhetoric.
The top story at 4 o'clock, Telkom has reported a big jump of 1.9 billion rand in full-year profits, recording an increase of over 100%. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemel.
In your sports, Proteas worry of the USA, married to retire at Wimbledon or Olympics and Tour de France to start in Barcelona in 2026. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. Winnie Mandela Drive northbound in Fourways is queuing towards Monte Cassino Boulevard, and the N14 northbound in Pretoria has delays towards the R101 interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound has roadworks with traffic restrictions at Amanzimtoti. The N3 in Escort has roadworks with traffic restrictions near the Ferrer exit, and the N3 in both ways has roadworks with traffic restrictions in the Cliffdale area. In Cape Town, Voortrekker Road eastbound is slow moving through Maitland. Kendall Road in Deep River has construction site works reported near Boundary Road, so you're asked to expect delays in the area. And AZ Berman Drive has roadworks with traffic restrictions between the R300 highway and Highland Drive, so expect heavy delays. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.3 FM in Rustenburg. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
One of the biggest questions everybody's been asking, is it a government of national unity or is it not a government of national unity? We'll be chatting to the parliamentary coordinator for COSATU in a few minutes' time just about that. Before the break, before the news, in fact, we had this conversation where one of the listeners sending a WhatsApp voice note on we don't have a national purpose. So here's my thought on it, okay? Let me just repeat because it's that important. I'm suggesting, doesn't matter which parties, whether you want to call them government of national unity, coalition, whatever, when they finally get together, what South Africa has been lacking in the last, I think, decade at least, maybe longer, is a clear national purpose that we all rally around as a country, that we get, that if I asked every one of you very quickly, what is our national purpose, you know immediately what I'm talking about. I can tell you now, if we ask 10 people, we'll get 10 different answers, because there is no national purpose, according to me. That's my understanding. So I would concur with you in terms of that voice note. The question is, let me give an example. Around 1990, our national purpose was end apartheid. Very clear, understood, we all got it, right? 1994, it was nation building. Around 2000, it was probably picking up on former President Thabo Mbeki's points about I'm an African, and it became, let's be very African in our outlook. 2006 onwards, it was very much 2010 World Cup, right up to 2010, building up. Everything we did was around the 2010 World Cup. Since then, I personally have been battling to understand what our national purpose is. So the question is, do we have a national purpose? The fact that we're even asking the question suggests we don't clearly know it. So we need to have a national purpose. The parties must agree on it. They must be very clear about it. We as an entire nation must be part of it. We must embrace it fully, and effectively we must align our personal purpose to our national purpose in every single activity we do in our lives, in our workplace, every day. You find when we do that and we switched on, then we create a culture that shifts the nation from where we are to a level that's just far higher. And in fact, we as a country are now just much better for that, because that will impact the citizens. I hope you get that. That's really my point for now. So what does COSATU, by the way, say about the government of national unity? Lots of thoughts on different things. They've certainly welcomed the re-election of President Ramaphosa, but they have thoughts on the government of national unity or provincial unity as well. Matthew Parks is with me. He's the COSATU parliamentary coordinator. Matthew, I appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So first of all, let's get this right. I mean, there's not a minute going past nowadays where people have a comment or two. It's like, yes, no to GNU. What do you think?
Well, look, I mean, we're a noisy democracy. Everybody's got about 10 opinions. But I think, look, first, the main thing is we have elected a president. He's the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. That is first the fundamental objective of contesting elections, to ensure that the ANC wins. Then we are grateful for the support society has given to the ANC, despite the many challenges we have experienced. ANC is leading national governments, it's leading provincial governments in 7 out of 9 provinces, is participating in the other one. So I think for us that's positive. We had our own thoughts around what are the options in terms of a government of national unity, a minority government, or the other type of permutations. We have engaged with those with the ANC and the Communist Party. And I think we had understood the ANC's rationale for government national unity, based upon the fact that no party got close to 51%. And I think also based on the view that, well, society is so heavily polarized, the political situation is quite toxic, and the socio-economic challenges facing society are so intense there was a need for a GNU to include as many political parties as possible. I think our concern has been about making sure this government is stable, that its principles are correct, that it's about the respect of the rule of law, adherence to the Constitution. But I think also for us where we have some concerns is around the respect for workers' rights and the transformation agenda. The Democratic Alliance is a major party in the GNU. And historically, since 1994, it's positioned itself to oppose every single labor law Parliament has ever passed, whether it's maternity leave or minimum wage, and they also premise their campaign around that to a large extent. And of course, they've also often had a very unhelpful relationship with regards to the transformation agenda that society at large has pursued since 1994. But we have appreciated that ANC has made efforts to address our concerns in the GNU Declaration of Intent. They reaffirmed their commitment to respecting workers' rights, to respecting and maintaining the transformation agenda. So I think for us what's critical now is to have further engagements on the composition of the government of national unity, and also to make sure that this manifesto, its anchor policy mandate is engaged with workers, with business, with civil society, make sure it's progressive and make sure it's stable and can get the job done.
But let me just rewind back. I mean, we understand what's happened. We understand that no party's got 50%, so there has to be some horse trading that's got to take place. I think that's a given, no matter how others are skeptical, right? The bigger question just for now is, we know what the ANC has done. We know who they've spoken to. We know who they have not spoken to, or others have chosen not to speak to them. But do you call this, what we have now, a government of national unity, or do you call it a multi-party coalition?
Well, look, for us it's a government of national unity, because if it was a state coalition, the ANC could simply have gone and called, one of the big three other opposition parties, be it the DA, MK, or EFF. The fact that the ANC basically opened up it to all political parties, big and small, irrespective of ideological views and number of seats in parliament, and basically left up to those parties themselves to choose whether or not to RSVP. And I think the fact that you've seen that quite a diversity of parties have RSVP, they said yes, they're available, be it the DA on the centre-right, be it the IFP, which is the traditional party which the ANC has worked with quite closely for many years, be it the Patriotic Alliance, who the DA actually says they don't want to work with, and they've been good as well. And I think we hope the other parties will also consider taking up the invitation as well. It would be a positive thing to have, for example, the PAC, the UDM, and other parties too. But ultimately, look, you can't force someone to come to your GNU. But
here's the thought. You see, so is the GNU or the Government of National Unity all about the intent? That means as long as you've invited everybody, which the ANC, I understand, has done that, then that's already a Government of National Unity? Or does it actually have to have a sizable majority? And I ask that because, as you know, there are two significant parties that are not part of this Government of National Unity.
Yeah, look, so let's take the precedent of 1994, the GNU that time. It didn't include every party. In the Constitution that time, under the interim Constitution, the big three parties, the ANC, the National Party, IPU, were entitled to seats. Madiba did invite other parties, the PAC, the Democratic Party, to take up seats. They declined. But the ANC did that time give smaller parties chairpersonships of committees in Parliament. So not all parties are always GNU, And again, look, first there's not a major issue. The gesture was made. An inclusive offer was made by the ANC. Parties don't have to accept the offer. Other parties, have taken to say they want to remain in opposition, which, by the way, is exactly what the Democratic Party did in 1994, when they declined Madiba's offer and they said they'd rather focus on being in opposition. So that's their right. But in terms of a sizable majority, the ANC has achieved that, because I think the ANC's premise, which they have explained to us, they want to have a stable government, which can ensure not only do you elect the president and the speaker, but that you can pass the budget, and also you can pass the legislation which Parliament needs to do on a weekly basis, rather. So if you have these five parties, you've already exceeded 2/3 majority in Parliament. So that does give it sufficient.
Here's an interesting tweet from Vernon Adams saying, Ashraf, let's at least use the proper political term then. Multi-party government. A GNU is formed in crisis and as a temporary solution. I mean, so to go back to the example of 94, I mean, a government of national unity even then was temporary, and it was formed in a crisis of a country broken apart that needed to come together. I mean, is he not spot on there?
Look, because I don't think, first, the real issue is about linguistics. everybody can get a different adjective. The ANC is called a GNU because of the external invasion of parties. For us, it's not really a critical thing. The critical thing is, do we have a stable government? Yes. Has the ANC been able to lead a form government? Yes. Will it soon be appointing a cabinet? It will. And can it get back to actual work which voters actually wanted to focus on? We're not really that keen on politics. And of course, it is exciting for this few weeks. But we're keen to ensure we have a stable government because given our crises we're facing in the country, which are very, very serious, I don't think one can put any other label to them except they are border an emergency. You can't sustain a society with a 41% unemployment rate. We can't sustain a society where we have endemic levels of crime, of corruption, where we have real problems of load shedding not so long ago, where transit and metro rail are really struggling, where many companies are closing in rural towns because municipal service have deteriorated to the point of collapse. So I think for us, those are emergencies. And that's why we're keen to make sure we have a stable, coherent government, which has got a very clear mandate, which can focus on addressing these issues, because we just don't have the luxury of time. The political parties across the board would be wise to remember we have local elections in 2 years' time. Society, as indicated, is quite exhausted by parties, and it really wants to see the government, GNU, whatever level they want to get to is fine, get to work and really address those issues. I think that's a critical thing. And I think we would really hope that the 7th Parliament doesn't repeat the circus we've seen in the 6th Parliament, where some political parties have chosen to bring violence and anarchy to Parliament, where one political party even tried to physically assault a sitting president during a State of Emergency address. We really hope that members of Parliament handle themselves with some level of decorum and maturity and really focus on addressing the issues of unemployment, of poverty, of corruption, etc. And a little bit less of political point scoring.
Okay, well, let's see what happens. Matthew Parks, COSATU's parliamentary coordinator, his thoughts on Government of National Unity. By the way, the podcast of that will be up pretty shortly, including, all the things we've done already, including the conversation at the beginning of the show with Dr. David Matsanga from Uganda, who really spoke about some of the big issues that he's particularly concerned about in South Africa, including what he called some of the big issues and the hidden emerging conflict. Let's get calls now. Twayisa on the line. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to FIS listeners.
Yeah, good talking to you. Really, go ahead. Yeah.
Hey, I think you've tried your best to kind of settle the doubts in terms of explaining what's the difference between coalition and and GNU. You tried your best.
But say but.
Yeah?
I thought you were going to say but. Yeah.
No. They say a thing, but I think that there's no part from my side. But listen from the callers, I think there's a big part, the capital letter P. But anyway, Ashraf, I think there is a deliberate attempt to discredit this. Or let's say so-called. Someone.
Yeah.
Some people are not so sure what it's GNU, but I strongly believe it's GNU because my understanding, a coalition could be between two parties. It's not two parties. It's multi-parties. And I propose, Ashraf, that maybe to settle the dust completely, we need to call in an expert to explain to us the difference between GNU and coalition.
Well, maybe, but on the other hand, we could talk about that for like days on end, right? I mean, the bigger issue is not so much whether it's a government of national unity or whether it's a coalition. What I want is a government of the type of government of service delivery. I mean, that's really what it is. Can we get a government of service delivery, whether it's a government of coalition or government of national unity? If they can up their service delivery across the country for all the peoples of our country, well, then that's just great.
That's precisely my point. So sorry to interrupt you there. That's precisely my point. The inclusion or the involvement of DA in particular among other parties, I think it's going to bring us we're going to have an immense gain as a country.
Well, we have to see. I mean, I don't know.
I strongly believe it's in the best interest of the country. Because you know why I'm saying this, Ashraf? Quickly.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
40 seconds. Yes. The involvement of DA surely will produce a huge improvement in terms of economic growth, in terms of, just to mention a few because of time, economic growth, service delivery, as you've just said. I'm sure there will be a huge difference, and more especially, there will be a huge reduction of or attempt on the reduction of corruption.
Okay.
Because why I'm saying that
I'm going to have to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there.
You have to look at where the DA
Okay, I'm going to have to leave it there. Well, I don't know. Look, I hear what you're saying. Lots of things I would agree with what the DA does. Some things I would disagree with them totally, as I would do with the ANC. Let's see what they do in implementation. A lot depends on how all those parties actually work together, and the principle of all these parties with different philosophies and ideologies working together for the common good of South Africa, well, for me, that's pretty cool. Let's see if they really do that. This is the National Pulse.
Delve into the intense personal journeys of individuals whose bad choices have led to severe consequences, where each episode unpacks these transformative stories told through raw, first-hand experiences of those who live them. It's a hard-hitting and emotional exploration of real-life struggles, showcasing the heavy price of redemption. Channel your best reality with My Secret Enemy, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3.
Richmond United ladies have big plans to spend more time in the top 4. But First Touch FC want to live up to their name and put together first touches that will trouble their opponents. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch them Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Richmond United Ladies FC versus First Touch Ladies FC. This Saturday 22 June at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so we have a president being inaugurated tomorrow. What will be the shape of the executive, of the cabinet? I doubt it'll be announced tomorrow, but it could happen very, very imminently thereafter, particularly now that we have this, well, multi-party coalition or government of national unity, where there's going to have to be some horse trading, and some parties who would be normally in opposition would actually have a seat as part of cabinet. In many ways, Patricia Diddle did it last year already, right? In the last administration. So we'll have more of those, particularly with the DA and I would think the IFP and others too. Now, the South African Medical Association, they have their own issue on this. In fact, they are urging Ramaphosa, the president, to slash cabinet posts. So why? Dr. Imbuyizi Mzukwa is the South African Medical Association chairperson. Appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to Ashraf and to your listeners, and thanks for inviting me to the National Pulse.
Okay, so why the slashing? Because I think slashing sounds like, okay, maybe we're going to save, but sometimes you could actually lose your productivity. Why the slashing of cabinet positions?
Well, Ashraf, it's known to all of us that the country is struggling financially. You know about the austerity measures that have been put in place that also affected the Department of Health in terms of hiring of staff and attending to broken equipment and all of these things. So we're looking at ways of trying to save money for the country so that money is taken where it is needed most, and that would be in the healthcare sector as we know it. So we thought we need to use this opportunity whilst government is starting from scratch to suggest that let us start with the issue of saving money by taking down, the number of ministers that we have, so that we save money for the other things. You'll recall that we are a very small economy compared to others. So we think it is doable because other countries with complex economies are doing it, like your Japan, your Germany, your USA, and everybody else.
So, I mean, interesting. So, are you saying to do away with the deputy posts because there are many deputies in the various ministries, and that alone would suffice, or do you actually want the deputies out as well as cutting down the number of actual departments?
Well, we could do away with deputies, obviously depending on how large that sector is. For example, if you're looking at, for example, the Department of Health, it's quite a big sector. So you could look at instances like those. But also, even the number of ministers. Because you'll recall, Ashraf, you've got the Director General, who is the technocrat of the department. So why have two political heads, when actually you can do with one? And that is going to save, because if you take down even deputy ministers, it could save the country a lot of money, and that could be channeled elsewhere.
Okay, let's move on to the other part, because, I mean, we don't know what their thinking is, and they wouldn't want to compromise on service delivery, which gets back to exactly where you are. Your real problem is not so much the amount of cabinet posts, but the issues of far too many qualified medical doctors or nurses or others in healthcare not getting jobs. And we've spoken about this extensively, where doctors have had to pick it to get a job, which is it's ridiculous considering how much effort they've had to put in to graduate in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Ashraf, whenever we're talking about issues of infrastructure, issues of hiring of medical personnel, we are told that the department doesn't have money. Obviously, because there's been this reduction in terms of their budget on a yearly basis. And we are saying, government can't be working in silos. So if we are going to be saving, we must look at, at the government holistically, and we must look at where money is being wasted. We know about corruption, we know about these other things, but also there are issues like, for example, commemoration of the June 16 and the rallies and everything that is organized by government.
Yeah.
What does that help, in the bigger scheme of things, when actually there's about 42% youth in the country? So those commemorations are meaningless in the country, when actually that money should be used elsewhere, to really for service delivery.
But would you not think that those various public events, I mean, we just had Youth Day, 2 days ago, that those are important for social cohesion, and if money spent on that is necessary? Can you imagine us not having that at all?
Are we achieving, the question is, are we achieving that national cohesion? How can we have national cohesion when people are unemployed? I mean, you are just leading us to many protests and everything else. So that is why I think we need to rethink as a country. We can't be commemorating when other people are sitting down unemployed. We are enjoying, the spotlight of the media and everybody else. But what happens to those that are unemployed? That we're talking about, that we're saying it's a youth month. What are we trying to achieve by all these things? It's just one aspect.
I understand, yeah.
There are many other issues.
While I've got you here, what's your take on NHI?
Well, we know that NHI is just a pie in the sky. We've been told that it's going to take decades before it comes into fruition. So whilst we are here and now, we need to think about what do we do now that we're starting a new government. How can we improve in terms of expenditure, save, and obviously attend to the challenges that we have in healthcare?
Okay, but let's see what happens coming out of that. Thank you for your time. Let's see, of course, if the president and the new executive actually agrees with you in the first instance of cutting down those numbers of cabinet ministers or deputies, and then ensuring there's more money available for people in your industry, in the medical healthcare space. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated. There we are, Dr. Imvuyisi Mzukwa, who's the South African Medical Association chairperson. Right, there's lots of other, here's another one, GNU simply means Gangsters of National Unity. I don't know if that's clever. I mean, I hear what you're saying. What does that mean? Here are people from different political parties getting together, and I'm not necessarily supportive of one party, just so that you know that. But they are certainly trying, because we as a public have given them a mandate. We haven't given them a mandate to govern solo. So they're trying to get together, whether they want to call it coalition or GNU, and to simply say Gangsters of National Unity. I don't know what purpose does that serve. Quite honestly, I just don't. Okay, that's the type of one-line comments that just takes us absolutely nowhere. Let's get the news headlines. It's 4:30. Here's Budupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, South African markets rallied as news of the new government of national unity was received well. Telkom has reported a big jump of 1.9 billion rand in 4-year profits, recording an increase of over 100%. And police in Kenya have fired tear gas and arrested protesters who are out on the streets of Nairobi to oppose a new finance bill that would introduce new taxes. Details coming up 5 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the presidential inauguration will be taking place on Wednesday in Pretoria with extensive road closures which will apply from 3 a.m. Wednesday morning until 6 a.m. Thursday morning through Hatfield, Eastwood, Sunnyside and the Union Buildings area. The M1 southbound in Houghton Estate has a crash just before Houghton Drive exit. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a lost load reported from a truck just before Giluli's interchange, which is causing some serious delays. Grayson Drive eastbound in Sandton is queuing towards the M1 highway, and the N1 southbound in Midrand has a crash reported at Buccleuch interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound has roadworks with traffic restrictions reported between Mgeni Road and Spaghetti Junction. The N3 in both ways has roadworks with traffic restrictions in that Camperdown area, and Bel Air Road has roadworks with traffic restrictions near Chief Albert Luthuli Hospital. In Cape Town, Govan Mbeki Road has roadworks with traffic restrictions in that Hanover Park area reported, and Veltervreden Drive is closed between Cedar Avenue and Spine Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Tumi, let's get what's the big stories now?
Well, we hear from the Proteas as they're preparing themselves to face USA as they kick off the Super 8 stage tomorrow. And Proteas batter Risa Hendrick says that they are very wary of USA. The US are in the midst of a dream run, having qualified for the Super 8 in their debut appearance. And it's the first time these two sides meet in a T20.
No, not at all. I mean, it's not the stage to take any team lightly. They're in the Super 8 for a reason. They did well against Pakistan in their group stage to qualify. So yeah, we can't take any team lightly, and we definitely won't be doing that going into our game against the USA. We can approach it as any other team we play against, and yeah, hopefully we can come out on top. I mean, it's Super 8, so yeah, we have to put our best foot forward to try and qualify for the playoffs, semi-finals, and hope potentially final.
Well, the game starts at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. Then in tennis, former world number one Andy Murray says that retiring at either the Paris Olympics or Wimbledon would be a fitting end to his career. Murray has long hinted that he would likely not play much beyond this year. He said that he's unlikely to play in September's US Open, making this summer the potential finale of his career. In football, Hashim Domingo says that the chance to play for a team with the style of Cape Town City was a major factor in him signing a 3-year contract with coach Eric Tinkler's side. Domingo is the second signing of the transfer window for City after the arrival of Namibia left winger Prince Chueza, who had been set to join in January, but had his stay delayed by an ankle injury picked up at the Africa Cup of Nations. Now, Domingo comes from Raja Casablanca, where he was a league winner in their invisible season under former Orlando Pirates coach Joseph Zimbabwe and assistant Fadlu Davids. Elsewhere, Kylian Mbappe could miss France's remaining group stage fixtures with a broken nose. Mbappe sustained the injury after colliding with Kevin Danso's injury in their win over Austria. He was taken to the hospital and doesn't need surgery. Initially, he was going to wear protective gear to protect his nose, but it remains unclear if he'll be ready on time to play again soon. Then South African 5,000 meter champion Adrian Wilschat says that he is eagerly anticipating the upcoming Olympic Games as he begins to hit his peak. The 26-year-old, who has qualified for the 5,000 meter and 10,000 meter events recently, set national records in the 2,000 and 5,000 meter events at the Oslo and Stockholm Diamond League Series.
The Olympic preparation is going relatively well. I competed in 2 Diamond Leagues earlier. And I did the Oslo Diamond League and Stockholm Diamond League, and I did the 5K and 3,000 meters. And it went really well, really good for preparation. I had a down week, and now I have about 5-6 weeks of really, really hard training. And I'm in a good spot right now, but the preparation is going really well, and I'm still excited for the next few weeks to really get after it and put myself in a great position to compete really well at the Olympic Games.
Ending things off with cycling, the Tour de France will start in Barcelona in 2026, the third time the race has started in Spain in over a century. Cycling's most famous race started in Saint Sebastian back in 1992 and in Bilbao last year. This year, the tour starts in the Italian city of Florence on the 29th of June before reverting to Lille next year. This year's Tour de France will end in Nice on the 21st of July. With that said, it is a wrap from my side. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumi Kapele.
What you're saying, besides cycling, so cricket, we've now gone to the business side of it, right?
Yes.
I'm talking
it's
about
high
T20.
time, yes. Super 8s. It's going to be interesting.
Now it matters. Now it really matters.
It does really matter.
What does it look like for South Africa? Have you been...
Listen, I mean,
enough?
they've won
They
all
beat
their
Nepal
matches.
by 1 run. I can't believe it.
I know. It's been very tricky and edgy for the Proteas, but now there's no time for errors. But they're playing in the West Indies, so they're hoping that they'll do well. And the first one against USA, a lot of people might just say, listen, USA, I mean, it's the first time they're playing in this tournament. They might have been lucky. However, as Riza did say, don't take anything for granted because, the stage now is getting a little bit more difficult.
Well, look, when we won against Nepal by 1 run, then I would draw inspiration from the Springbok team because there were a lot of 1-point wins.
Yeah.
So 1 run will be just good enough to win a World Cup final if they win by 1 run. Great chatting as always, to me. We'll do it again in an hour's time, yeah?
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets now. It's after that long weekend with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, let's talk about Telkom. It certainly has been headline news all day.
Definitely, and good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Telkom Ashraf made a good progress, delivering a stronger operational performance and improved financials, and their data-led strategy delivered ahead of industry trends. And now when you look into the mobile customers, they just surpassed 20 million customers, and the OpenServe is leading fiber connectivity, now at 48.5% connectivity rate, and the guys are basically prioritizing what they call monetizing their fixed network and passing more than 1.2 million homes with fiber. BCX growing their IT service revenue, but Eskom's issues added to operating cost, and the guys managed to dispose the SwiftNet for 6.75 billion, and the group revenue was up 1.6%, driven by an increase in mobile data and also next generation fiber data connectivity revenue. Hence, their total headline earnings per share increased by a whopping 203%, and that was driven by improved operational performance. And the market participants were happy. Share price was up at some 0.5%. Now it's up 4.5%.
Views on local and global markets.
Ashraf, early in the session, market participants awaited a key retail sales report and comments from the U.S. Central Bank officials to better gauge the timing and pace of interest rate cuts. But locally, after the re-election of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa for a second term, market participants are now looking with keen interest to the formation of his cabinet, which is expected to be announced tomorrow. So investors anticipate an acceleration of economic reforms, and on the day Ashraf, where commodity prices are soft and the dollar edging up, the rand is holding on, their gains, and that can be attributed to the recent political developments. And Ashraf, seemingly there's really no reason for not having an appetite or for people not to be biased. So people don't have to be real sellers right now, because market participants, they believe that momentum is going to continue and stocks will continue to win. And the fact that the market rally has been driven mostly by a select few stocks, that will mean that should it happen that a pullback gets to materialize, it could be deeper, and this narrow breadth may make the market more vulnerable to surprises. But as the US equities make new highs, global investors are likely to keep pumping money into the market, and those US retail sales barely rose in May, and prior months were unfortunately revised lower, pointing to greater financial strain among consumers, and that helping to reinforce rate cut expectations in September. We're getting our retail sales tomorrow from Stats SA, and oil is sitting up as traders see the market tightening in Q3, and that's on expectations that U.S. summer fuel demand will draw down more inventories, and Brent crude is up 1.5% at $84 a barrel, and the easing bond yields are lifting the yellow metal, which is up 0.2% at 2,323. Platinum is down 0.5% at 969. The DAX is up 0.2%, FTSE up 0.5%, CAC also 0.5% up. The Dow is flat, S&P is up 0.1%, but the JSE is up a whooping 3.5%. Our financials doing most of the heavy lifting, up 6.5%. Industrials up 2.5%. Resources are up 0.6%. The rand firmed almost 1% against the US dollar, is now at 18.09 and 23 to the pound and 19.44 to the euro.
And that's you for today. We'll talk again tomorrow, Makwe. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
There we are, Makwe Masilela, right? So we'll still have another market update coming up in just under an hour's time. There's been news that the PAC, remember the PAC, they now have joined the Government of National Unity Pact. We'll get an update on that as soon as we can. Let's get callers now from Yanga. We go in Cape Town. Hi, Yanga. Yanga. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, Yanga.
I'll start with you.
Sorry?
Yeah. Thank you for taking my call, Ashraf.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to highlight these extortion, gangs that are exploiting people, small businesses here in the Western Cape. Stuff. I think the situation it's bad now, but I'm shocked that the media has not highlighted this issue. It's terrible. Where small businesses have to pay so-called protection fee, and you can end up paying three people. This gang will come and you pay them the following day. The other come, and how you supposed to make your bottom line? It's a small business.
Well, it's not even about the bottom. It's not even about the bottom line. It's downright illegal. Firstly, and it's criminal. That's really what it is, isn't it? Just a quick one. Your line's not very good. So, quick one to you. Has anything been done to try and? I was going to use the word arrest. That extortion. But can it be stopped? Do you know?
That's the thing when I said, because nothing has been done. It's like a norm. And one guy was telling me that he went to the police station with the information, and the police just gave him advice to say, "Hey, dude, you know what? You need to pay because these guys are dangerous now. If you go to the police with the information, and the only advice they can give you is to succumb to this criminals, small businesses."
So you're saying, okay, we're going to move. You're saying that the police are also advising you just pay because, these guys are...
they just give you to say, guys,
okay,
these guys are dangerous, and you just have to, to pay them.
All right, got that. Don't like it, got that. I'm sure somebody, as we move into a new government of national unity or multi-party coalition, whatever it is, somebody has to sort this out. I can tell you now, Yanga in Cape Town, thanks for that call. Further comments, you heard about the PAC. We'll get further comment on that as soon as we can. By the way, we'll chat to Professor Stephen Friedman on coalition and GNU coming up after 5 o'clock and talking about the same issues. Let me also tell you that this is important. Dr. Annelie Lotrit, who is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, is my guest coming up in the next few minutes, so stay tuned for that, right? Okay, let's get to some of the questions. Here's one about the inauguration tomorrow.
Ashraf, Flores here from the Western Cape. Ashraf, I'm just interested to know if there are some money left of that 58 million for our first parliament sitting. And If there is any left, they can use it for tomorrow's inauguration. And yeah, what is the amount there that will be spent? How much of our money will be spent tomorrow for this whole inauguration thing of Cyril Ramaphosa? Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Thank you, much appreciated. But I mean, here's the question. I don't know how much we'll find out. In fact, I know there's a live broadcast with Kathy and company tomorrow, so they'll be covering the entire show. But I mean, do we not have any inauguration? It is ultimately the single most important appointment for a country every 5 years. Do we have nothing? I don't think we need massive fanfare, but we can't have nothing, can we? I'll have a note, in fact, of the... Yeah, let me just tell you who's coming, what I understand. So it's not necessarily head of state, but certainly high-ranking leaders from many SADC countries, Eswatini, Lesotho, then Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Namibia, Angola, Tanzania, Uganda, the People's Republic of China, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the State of Palestine, and the Republic of Cuba. That's what I have at the moment, right? Here's another one, naturally on GNU.
Ashraf, afternoon. Why are we so concerned about the name of the GNU? We can call it a stockfell, we can call it a company, we can call it a partnership. What we want is service delivery. Let's focus on service delivery. What are they going to do for us? And I feel sorry for Mnangagwa. It's very shameless to come to eat our food here. What does he know about democracy? What does he know? Shameless man. No man from Brixton.
Okay, I gather that you're Zimbabwean, perhaps, isn't it? But there you are, call it a stockfell. You know what? I'm with you on that. I said so earlier on. What we want is a government of national service delivery. And if that means it's a GNU or a coalition or whatever it is, really, the way we've run it hasn't really worked because it's a fact that we've struggled with service delivery. So that's one there. In fact, talking about Mnangagwa, clearly lots of people have views on him.
Ashraf, this is Para here for the first time sending a VN to you. I was used to Aldrin. Anyway, that is how life it is. I just wanted to say, in short, where is Mr. Vuyo Zungula? I wish he can rush to the courts and ban Mnangagwa from attending the inauguration. That will make most of us a good day, if not a good year. Thank you.
Okay, there we are. If not a good year, at least a good day. But thanks for the voice note. As you said, first time since Aldrin's gone. But yeah, like Parliament, you're going to get new cabinet ministers. I suppose we have new hosts of shows, and that's it's been 2.5 months already, and I'm very settled into this position, by the way. But thanks to the support that we get, right? Okay, I did say we'll speak to the newly elected Deputy Speaker of Parliament, and we'll talk to her in a moment.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
SABC Sport delivers a warm blanket this June.
3 teams are playing their hearts out in the PSL promotional playoffs, all hunting for a special ticket to the Big Boys League of Ibhola laseMzansi.
The queens of the beautiful game kick like real champs in the Hollywood Bet Super League.
Foot Afrique brings you up to speed on African football, while Final Analysis wraps up your weekend.
LFC TV is the ultimate destination for Liverpool FC fans, while Sport at 10 keeps you awake on Wednesdays.
Dive deep into comprehensive analysis of the world of boxing on the TKO.
The Journos podcast brings together top sports journalists for engaging conversations and expert insights.
Countdown to Paris brings you up to speed on the build-up to the Olympic Games Paris 2024 on Saturday evenings.
There's action galore in the world of SABC Sport, Boxing World Weekly, NBA Lifestyle, Youth Sport Show, Goats Like Us, Racing 92 and many more. Happy Youth Month.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We're going to talk about personal branding with specific reference to the youth and understanding again purpose. And my call out the entire show today as being like, what is our national purpose? And if you don't have an answer, what should our national purpose be? We'll chat to Professor Stephen Friedman just now, after 5 o'clock, around just his understanding of the implementation of the Government of National Unity. But for now, we have Dr. Annelie Lottrit, who's the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. So good chatting to you, Dr. Lottrit. Much appreciated, and thanks to you live with the National Pulse.
Good afternoon.
Let me ask you this. Do we call you Honourable as well?
Yes, you can.
Because I'm trying to think you need to get used to it the other way around, isn't it?
Yes, no. It's obviously very early days, but the Deputy Speaker is usually addressed as Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Okay, well, there you are. Okay. I have lots of discussion about that, okay, but we'll get to that in a moment. What, you like, well, you haven't started effectively, but 1 or 2 days into this new title for yourself, just your personal reflections on what it means to you.
Well, it's obviously a great responsibility. We've been talking about things such as a government of national unity or coalitions or any, just working together as political parties since the election. And, when this becomes a reality where you actually have a deputy speaker from another party and not the ANC who has held these positions forever, you realize what it is and that it is, in fact, historic. So, yes, at this point when I think about it, I think of, well, lots of responsibility on my shoulders.
Now, often when we talk about political appointments, especially at cabinet, a big discussion has been, those are cadre appointments and they're not necessarily qualified or best suited for those positions. Does that differ when it comes to appointing, a speaker in parliament or a deputy speaker? Meaning, bottom line, what I'm asking is, what do you think? What makes you so qualified for this position?
Well, I think I have quite a bit of experience. I've been in politics since 2000 and a member of parliament since 2009, where I've occupied a number of positions in the party as a chairperson, as chairperson of our caucus, deputy chief whip. So yes, I've occupied many positions where I have, I think, honed my skills as a presiding officer.
And what makes a very good, effective speaker, well, I'm going to use the word speaker, deputy speaker interchangeably, right? What makes that person so effective at doing their duty in Parliament?
Well, I think, first of all, it must be someone who knows Parliament, who knows the rules, and also doesn't come with an agenda. It must be someone who is there to make Parliament work because we are in service of the people of South Africa. So once you've done that, you're on the way to becoming a good speaker or deputy speaker, but you must be able to exert authority. You must be able to take difficult decisions and not be swayed by a specific party. You must be someone who's able to listen to different arguments, even if you don't agree. Allow robust debate, but know when the line has been crossed. So I think it's just a good speaker, deputy speaker, is someone who understands a parliament and what a parliament is.
And what has been your assessment of previous deputy speakers?
Well, my predecessor, he was there for 2 terms. Wonderful person. But I think also, it's difficult if you have a situation where you only have one party in government. It's a totally different dynamic. So I can't say, people were terrible, or I have respect for all of them, all the predecessors.
But you did say, the need to put effectively South Africa first and not have an agenda. So how difficult is it for you not to have an agenda, yourself and the speaker, right, that both of you effectively get elected or nominated by your parties? I mean, ultimately, that's the grouping that puts you in that position in the first place.
Yes, I think that is will be a challenge, obviously, and it will also require a mind shift, because I come from opposition. So my whole inclination and my whole attitude was to be a good member of the opposition, whereas now you're not. You're part of the legislative and oversight function of Parliament. So yes, I think it could be a bit difficult in the beginning, but you have to go beyond that.
You made the point that it's, in terms of your predecessor, that they were Speaker or Deputy Speaker of one party, and there's been the case for the previous, 6 administrations, right? And suggesting that's more difficult. Why would that be more difficult than being a Speaker or Deputy Speaker in very much uncharted territory for South Africa now?
No, I don't think it was more difficult. I think it was very easy for them to work with a specific agenda. Now, for example, we have a situation where the Speaker is from the ANC, I'm from the DA, and we have to find common ground. So we will have to make sure that this thing works, and the only way to do that is to put Parliament first and the people first.
I suppose you guys have had a chat already?
Yes, I've just come from a meeting. We've had a very good, productive meeting now.
And anything you can share coming out of the meeting that you'd like to share with us?
I think it was only the more administrative matters, as to what happens now, the urgent matters that we have to look at, and that we have to get Parliament going now. Members have been sworn in, and now we have to basically plan for when will the first sittings be. So it was merely administrative. Your
thoughts then on what we have? There's this ongoing debate. Is it a government of national unity? Is it a coalition? Now it's interesting putting that to you, because yourself and your colleague will effectively administer the day-to-day running of the MPs when they're sitting in Parliament. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it is a difficult one in the sense that it has elements of both. If you look at a government of national unity, it means basically that all parties are part of that government of national unity. This agreement, the statement of intent, started with 3 parties. But then the President also said, other parties are able to join, which I see some parties have indicated their intent to join. So it's not a full government of national unity, but it's also not absolutely a coalition, a closed coalition with only a few parties. So I think it's a hybrid.
But would you then still call it a GNU, or would you call it a third name?
I think for the moment, a GNU is the most understandable.
I noticed the PAC, I understand now, breaking story, has just confirmed that they're joining the government of national unity. So that's one more political party, right? Let's end with this, right? And at the end of the day, we can debate the GNU or coalition or whatever, but ultimately I made the point earlier that we need to have a government of service delivery, right? How do you see, your role and the Speaker's role in terms of understanding legislation gets tabled and passed and not passed in the greater scheme of delivering for the people of South Africa?
Well, I first want to say that I fully agreed with you when you said government of national service delivery, because that's one of the great problems in our country, besides the economy. But I think at Parliament does have certain goals, things that they want to achieve, and the best way we can do that is, as you say, make sure that we get legislation through, important legislation. The 6th Parliament didn't pass that many pieces of legislation. It got bogged down in committees, and I think if one can have a firmer grasp on the process that the legislation goes through, and to hurry it up and speed it up and hold people responsible. And I think this is also where not necessarily the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, although in conjunction with him, the leader of government business will play a critical role in getting ministers to do their jobs, specifically also in terms of legislation. Furthermore, in terms of Parliament, we have a very important oversight role. And I think what we do need and what has to change is the oversight that members of the opposition have, and even members of the government of national unity have, over ministers and their performance and the departments.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's end with this, right? I spoke about, and we're on to news time already, we spoke about honourable earlier on. I find it very amusing when often MPs will get up in Parliament and say, the honourable Mr. So-and-so is a scoundrel. I just wonder whether we should even call, why do we have to stick with the title honourable?
That's tradition. So it comes a long way. So I think it's often said without the real intent of saying it.
Okay. So we can say the Honourable so-and-so is a scoundrel. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Indeed.
Much appreciated and best wishes. And we'll certainly be following yourself and the Speaker in Parliament and looking forward to some really effective work being done on behalf of all the people of South Africa. Thanks for your time, Dr. Annelie Lottridge, the Deputy Speaker, newly elected of the National Assembly. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf, and good afternoon to you. In this news update, the PAC joins the GNU and demonstrators take to the streets of Kenya's capital. Good day to you. The Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC, has joined the Government of National Unity ahead of the presidential inauguration tomorrow. South African markets, meanwhile, have rallied as news of the new Government of National Unity was received well. 5 political parties had already come together to form a Government of National Unity, including the ANC, DA, IFP, Good and the PA. The seamless process saw the rand trade during the day at around 18 rand 6 cents to the US dollar. Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers is Makwe Masilela.
And as the momentum continues, then stocks will continue to win. So back home here, we're also getting a boost from the fact that markets are getting a better full reaction to the developments that we've been seeing locally since Friday. Remember, yesterday it was a holiday and other markets were open, they were up. So I think it's now that we are fully reacting to the developments that we see on the political front, but markets will continue to keep a keen interest or an eye on the developments when it comes to the cabinet formulation. Remember, markets are anticipating that the cabinet that will be coming, it will be more that will be driving economic reforms. So markets are acting in anticipation.
Johannesburg's R. Tambo International Airport says the passenger terminal arrival road and cargo road will be temporarily closed from today until Saturday. This is part of the safety and security measures being undertaken to facilitate the arrival and departure of heads of state who are here for the presidential inauguration. Airport management says vehicles on airport roadways will be diverted to the departures roadway, as well as Parkade 2 South and levels 2 and 3 for pick-up and drop-off purposes. The inauguration of President-elect Cyril Ramaphosa tomorrow will be broadcast on SABC News Live on SABC+. The proceedings will also be streamed live on the SABC News YouTube channel and SABC Radio. Telkom's reported a big jump of 1.9 billion rand in full-year profits, recording an increase of over 100%. The company released its financial results for the year ending March 2024, attributing the gains to the group's data-led strategy. Telkom CEO Serame Takobo.
It was a very good performance for us, really driven by growth from our new generation platforms, particularly focused on our mobile revenue, which saw 6.8% growth in service revenue, entrenching our data-driven propositions, further supported by growth in our fiber business. So really entrenching Telkom as a leader in data-driven propositions in the market. I think the industry has faced some challenging inroads. I think what's key for us is that the long-term investment that Telkom has made, because we've been investing in the future, preparing ourselves for the high data demand.
The following story contains graphic details which may upset sensitive listeners, including children. Some of the eyewitnesses to try to save a woman mauled to death by 4 pit bulls in Bloemfontein in the Free State say they're still traumatized by the incident. Police say the woman was declared dead on the scene. Police put down 3 of the dogs while one was taken to the SPCA as it had puppies. A neighbor relays what happened.
When this happened, it initially started with Mama washing her clothes, and there was a child who was playing with water while she was doing her laundry. She then hit the child. Afterwards, that is when the dogs jumped on her and started biting her. She then screamed my name, and when I went outside, I found the dogs on top of her biting her. We then threw stones at them, and those are a different breed of dogs as they did not back off while we were trying to stop them. When we entered the yard, my brother slipped and fell, and they also beat him.
Police in Kenya fired tear gas and arrested demonstrators who are out on the streets of the capital Nairobi opposing a new finance bill. The BBC's Will Ross has more.
This feels like a significant moment as many young Kenyans are telling the government they'll not accept yet more taxes. They've risked the police tear gas and some were taken away in handcuffs as they marched against the new finance bill. President William Ruto has backed down to a degree. Parts of the bill are to be dropped, including plans for a bread tax.
Top story: South African markets rallied as news of the new government of national unity was received well. And of course, we've just heard that the PAC has now joined that government of national unity. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
In sports, Ronaldo to start his 6th European Championships today, and Erasmus names his first Springbok team for 2024. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The M24 in Centurion is closed between the Swartkorps entrance and Alaric Road due to a road collapse incident. In Pretoria, the N14 northbound has delays towards the R101 interchange, and the R21 northbound has delays on the link to the N1 North. In KZN, the M13 eastbound has roadworks with traffic restrictions at the N3 Paradise Valley interchange. The N3 eastbound in Pinetown is slow moving at Marion Hill Toll Plaza. The M4 has roadworks with traffic restrictions at Tongaat Beach, and the N3 both ways has roadworks with traffic restrictions in that Cliffdale area. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Harville Drive southbound is queuing towards Voortrekker Road. Jan Smuts Drive southbound in Epping is queuing towards the N2 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.6 FM in Mthatha.
Get private banking levels of service from an Auto and General private advisor. This exclusive service is perfectly tailored for customers with more to cover but less time to spend covering it. If you have more than a car to insure and your combined cover is valued at over 1 million rand, you qualify for this personalized service. Enjoy after-hours assistance, proactive policy management and more when you apply at autogen.co.za. Auto in General. Never not there. A&G is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Rewind the years of motoring TV magic with Top Gear Season 14. This series includes a test drive on Romanian roads, an incredible Bolivia special, as well as motoring news and reviews from Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May. Channel your inner stig with Top Gear Season 14. Monday to Wednesday at 10 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
There's now a bigger conversation on GNU or government of or coalition than even the political parties. And I see Kat is saying, let's think positive. If it works, we will celebrate. South Africa can do this, referring to the government of national unity. Lots more to come. We should be having a chat with the representative from the PAC coming up before we end the show. As you've just heard earlier on, PAC now the latest party to join what is called the government of national unity. But there's been lots of conversation, in terms of the impact or the effectiveness, the definitions, and how it'll work and how that will work in relation to other political parties. So we thought, let's get more on that from someone who ought to know. We have with me Professor Stephen Friedman, Research Professor of the Humanities Faculty at the University of Joburg. Prof. Friedman, appreciate your time on the National Pulse.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you indeed. Now, earlier on we chatted to Dr. David Matsanga, right, from Uganda, who penned an open letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa, speaking about many different things, including what he called hidden emerging conflict. He also had lots of thoughts about other things, and certainly was very concerned about the issues of, in terms of that emerging conflict, what he thought about the possibilities of violence. So I put that to him. This is what he had to say.
Already you can see the statements of Zuma. These sentiments can go back to to other people who are not employed. Millions and millions of South Africans, jobless. Those sentiments can inspire people to come up in a negative way. to pick up. Some people are even talking of picking up guns. Are you not seeing it? Why should we pick up guns? To fight who now? We have fought a war. We have contributed to South Africa ourselves. All Africa contributed to South Africa to become a nation free from all types of discrimination. So if you are discriminating a white person today, then you are also creating apartheid.
Okay, last thing, and you've got 30 seconds. You spoke about a unity of purpose. It's interesting. I opened the show with talking about South Africa needs to have one singular national purpose. When you talk about unity of purpose, what would that be in 30 seconds?
Unity of purpose means you look at South Africa as a model of Africa. We look at you as our model. Therefore, you must unite for the sake of a nation. There comes a time when a nation is bigger than individuals. Rise up and become part and parcel of a better, peaceful, non-violent South Africa. That is my call, and that is what my letter made.
Right, that was the voice of Dr. David Matsanga, right? Prof. Friedman with me. I mean, of course, the interview is much longer and you can listen to a podcast of that, but perhaps you might want to pick up on the issues of what he called the hidden emerging conflict and simmering tensions and violence, Prof. Friedman.
Well, I don't think it's a hidden emerging conflict. I mean, conflict's been part of this country for, at least the last 300 years. There is some danger, as we saw in July 2021 in KZN, that can spill over into serious violence. But I think it's always a mistake, which is a mistake which was made when the violence happened in KZN, to believe that this is, the people rising up. It's not the people rising up. It's very small groups, very often, of people with lots of weaponry who rise up. So it's really a policing issue rather than a political issue. The political issue is less people causing violence than people opting out, because if you look at the fact that percentage polls in our elections decrease every time, less and less people think it's worth voting. And that is and less and less people trust the politicians. And I think that's a bigger problem than the threat of violence, quite frankly.
So let's stay with that part you just mentioned, less and less people trusting politicians. So what does that mean in practice? If that trend continues, then what does that say about democracy?
Well, it means that obviously democracy is a lot weaker. So democracy is stronger when people really think they're being listened to, when people really believe that their voice and their vote matters. And if they don't believe that, they're not going to overthrow the system. But if there are threats to the system, as there always are, then they're not going to do terribly much to defend it. If this government, which is now in office, this coalition government, for example, doesn't improve things, then you're going to see even more disillusionment, and you're going to see even less enthusiasm for politics, and that weakens not only democracy, but it weakens the ability of the country to deal with its problems.
Okay, so what then is your thoughts of what has developed so far? I mean, a lot has happened since Friday.
Well, look, what happened on Friday is that, we really must stop this talk of a government of national unity. I mean, this is something the politicians are putting out. It's not a government of national unity. Yes, they've got a few small parties involved, but if you look at the agreement they signed on Friday, you see that, in effect, it says what the ANC and DA decide is what the government decides. And to put it bluntly, the other parties, with the exception of the IFP is there because it's essential for them to have the IFP there to govern KZN. But with respect to the other parties, they're there to create the illusion of a government of national unity. So we have a situation which, three bigger parties have got together to form a government who have usually been at loggerheads with each other. That's obviously a challenge for them to make it work. But I think more importantly is the point I made. Importantly, the point I made a moment ago. This government can't afford to be complacent. If it doesn't actually address the reasons why only 58% of people voted last time, then it's going to pay a price at the local elections, and it's going to pay a price at the next national election.
Okay, so your point, government of national unity or coalition or multi-party coalition or two-party coalition, we can have that debate all day long. I hear what you're saying, right? Perhaps the more important issue is, in practical terms, what are your thoughts about how they can and how they will and how they should work together?
Look, I think something interesting is emerging, Ashraf. The most interesting part of the agreement they signed is the one nobody's paying any attention to. And that is that besides agreeing to govern together, they decided that we ought to have what they call a national dialogue, which was originally the idea of former President Mbeki. Mm-hmm. And basically the idea behind that is that various business associations, trade unions, citizens' organizations, etc., get together with the politicians and try to chart a path forward. And I think that what that does for the coalition is that it makes it easier for it to govern, because there are issues on which the ANC and the DA don't see eye to eye at all, and they can, in a sense, duck those issues by saying, look, the national dialogue is dealing with this. And that's not actually a particularly, that's not necessarily a negative, because, what you want is a situation in which, what government does in the short term improves the lives of South Africans, but in the longer term, we actually chart a new course which gets us out of some of the problems. So certainly that it has the potential to do that, but I think the practical politics, as I say, is you're going to find that where the ANC and the DA can't agree, their out is always to say, well, look, we're not going to deal with this issue now because we're waiting for the national dialogue.
Where do you think they will battle to agree?
Well, the obvious point where they do see, stated policies are different, are issues like affirmative action, the national health insurance bill may be a potential problem, and foreign policy issues like Palestine, which I think is probably not that, people are talking about it as a big deal breaker. I don't think it really is, because, look, the only concrete issue there is, South Africa's taken the Israeli state to the International Court of Justice, and I really don't think the coalition government is going to interfere with that. So it'll probably be more about domestic issues like affirmative action, like national health insurance, like perhaps a national minimum wage.
So therefore, if I stay with that example, Stephen?
I meant basic income grants.
Okay, so with those examples, the basic income grant, NHI, as well as affirmative action, so when you have these two bigger parties who so publicly disagree with each other, I mean, you have any thoughts in terms of how they would practically work together on a day-to-day basis when on those issues they fundamentally disagree? Because I'm trying to see where's the deal maker in that, in practical terms.
No, I'm sure there's a lot that they can work along day to day. I mean, first of all, my reading, for example, of why so many people have switched off the ANC and don't vote for it anymore, is because they're concerned about basic services. Because water is a huge issue. People want clean running water. They want the lights to stay on. They want decent their environments to be kept clean, etc. And they, if they're small traders, they would very much like protection against criminals. Now, these are not points of disagreement between the two parties. They can agree on plans to deal with that. But what I'm saying is that at the same time they do that, there are the bigger policy issues where they now have the option of agreeing to disagree, because they can say, look, there's a process to deal with that, and we must respect that process.
Interesting. I had a caller earlier on who said that because the DA and the ANC will effectively co-govern with respect to the other smaller parties, as you've heard, the PAC has now just joined in as well, right? That effectively you'll have a better government, notwithstanding some of the other issues we've just spoken about before. Do you concur with that?
Well, not necessarily. it could lead to a better government. If you look at coalitions around the world, some of them lead to much better government, some of them lead to much worse government. I think it very much depends on how the political parties approach the issue. One of the things I always stress, which people ignore but should pay attention to, is that the kind of voices the politicians hear from citizens is very important. Don't believe if you're a South African that you're simply a spectator. If you want changes, say what they are. If that happens, if there's clear voices from citizens, if there's a recognition that what they're trying to do is send a message to South Africans that government can give them the basic services they need, then it will lead to better governance. But simply because you took to put the two biggest parties together in a government with the IFP, I'm afraid that doesn't automatically mean better governance unless other things happen as well.
All right, and here's the last thing, just as we wrap up. The two parties on the outside, the EFF and the MK party, how do you see that playing out as opposition parties to the government of national unity?
Well, I think one of the things that one would assume, and that I think is the kind of expectation, that they're going to cooperate together quite a lot. And there's talk about a so-called progressive caucus, and they will be part of that. So it's certainly possible that they will play that role. But there are differences between them, and I'm going to be interested in how those differences play out. But I think, Ashraf, a good point to stress here is that I think we need to look a little bit further than that, because one of the consequences of this coalition government may be that our whole politics starts to shift. That the EFF and the MK party become part of a lobby which is opposed to the coalition government from the one side, and then you have Action SA and similar types of parties opposing it from the other side, and then you have people peeling off from the coalition to join those parties, and then you have a very different political alignment, and that could be something that plays out over the next 5 years.
And maybe time to put our hands together and let's see what happens. Prof. Stephen Friedman, thank you for your time. Research professor at the Humanities Faculty at the University of Johannesburg. We'll have a podcast of that fascinating conversation. Really so much to get from that coming up pretty shortly. Let's talk about personal branding right after this.
This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme Actively Embracing the Socio-Economic Gains of Our Democracy. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto Uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. #Freedom30, #Youth Month. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
Let's start with your story, how things used to be and when things changed.
So, my kids were staying with my mom, who passed on in 2020. Then I had to take them. At first, everything was okay until we moved. That's when I noticed a change of behavior on my older daughter. She started with smoking weed. And I was on her case. She then said, can I please take her to the rehab for that because she can't leave it on her own?
Yeah.
I then took her to a private rehab in Bloemfontein. Well, she came back. She was okay. She was doing well until September last year. That's when everything started changing. The behavior. She started being untidy, started having short temper. It was a mess with her.
Utabile Ndai, who is a mother to a daughter who I believe is now 19, around about 19, currently in rehab.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Tell you what, we've been speaking so much about different political parties and what they stand for and what their brands are. We sometimes forget what do human beings stand for and what are their brands and just what are their personal brands. So, for example, if I mention, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of a name. If I think of Trevor Manuel because his name's come up, what sort of image conjures up? And he is in your mind when I just mention him. That reflects how we perceive his personal brand. That's just one thought on that. Now, we're going to talk more about that because it's that important. We think, right? Notutuko Mhlungu is with me, personal branding expert, as well as the founder of People with Purpose. So good chatting to you. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Hi, how are you?
Thank you. So you've got this big responsibility of giving us the pitch for us to understand why personal branding is important.
Why is it important? Thanks for having me, Ashraf. So maybe let's start with the definition. What is this personal branding? People have different ideas and understanding of it. But personal branding, one of the definitions I love is it is the intentional defining and expressing of one's value. And I place emphasis on the intentional part. In the workshops that I run, a foundational and starting point of that is self-discovery. Like you can't express your value without knowing who you are first. So we look at things like your interests, what are your goals, where do you want to go, what problems are you passionate about solving, and then that starts to take shape in terms of your goals and where you want to go.
So if I ask someone, what's your personal brand, and they say, well, I'm the MD of a company, that's the wrong answer.
That's what you do. Yeah. That's not your brand. So I often ask in the workshops that I run people to give a 3-word slogan. What are the 3 words that you think best describe you? And in fact, I ask other people to write 3 words that describe the other person and see how that lines up with how you describe yourself.
That's so fascinating. What comes out of it? Why is that important?
It's important. Let me maybe start here in the professional context because that's where, I do these workshops. It's important to understand what perception you have of yourself, and personal branding, perhaps another definition, is how you closing the gap between how you perceive yourself and how others perceive you, or how you want them to perceive you. So it's important because it attracts the right opportunities, collaborations, networks, and partnerships. You're not doing it for that purpose, but when you're deliberate about it, it's going to attract those opportunities, and inadvertently you're going to be promoted, collaborations, networks, etc. And people will come to know you for the value that you are bringing. I always say that because there's a misconception that personal branding is all about you and it's about promoting yourself and you're overly salesy. It's not. There is a little bit of self-promotion involved, don't get me wrong, but I place a lot of emphasis in the work that I do in the value that you're bringing in the communities that you find yourself in, whether it's online or in the workspace or anywhere else. We need to know Ashraf for the value that he's bringing to the communities. And when he does that, he's going to attract the right people to him.
But how does that then play out? So we all have an inherent value.
Yeah.
And if we don't know it, that's a problem. But
that's
A is to be aware of what the value is.
Yes.
But then how then do you play out your value? Because in some cases, if you're a surgeon, then your value would be, you're on operating theatre and it's like, we can see what you can do. But for some other people, maybe the majority, it's not that obvious, the value we bring to organizations or society.
I believe we all have a value or things that we're good at. And when I say value, like I said, it's the self-discovery process starts with looking at the things that you're interested in, the things that problems that you're passionate about solving. So you've got to start there and get a better understanding of what ways can I bring value to the environments that I find myself in. So at the outset, it might not seem clear, but it is an intentional exercise that you have to do, and hence the deliberacy around personal branding, understanding that part. What is my value? What do I bring? And then expressing it, as I said at the beginning with the definition.
You'll find that people who are intentional about understanding their personal brand versus those who have a personal brand but who are not intentional, that there's a difference in terms of how that plays out in terms of their output?
I think so. I mean, this is open to interpretation. I had someone commenting on one of my profiles. I posted something and they said, well, I've always been indifferent about personal branding, but now I see that if I am deliberate and there's certain strategies that you can deploy, that it definitely opens some doors, I would argue. I've certainly seen it play out in my own professional career. So I would argue that if you are deliberate to say, hey, this is who I am, it will open up more doors and opportunities for you. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned workshop, I think, twice earlier on. Tell me about a workshop coming up.
Yes, so we've got a youth day workshop. It's called the Ultimate Personal Branding Elevator, and it's just my way of giving back as part of People with Purpose. So it is a free webinar taking place on the 27th of June. It is online on Zoom. You can go check out the link on my Instagram account. I'm not very active on Twitter. I shouldn't say that as a personal branding person, but
we can tweet out that.
You can go to my Instagram account. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. The link is there, but it really is going to be a 90-minute long workshop where I'm going to be doing a personal branding 101 workshop with the youth, and everyone is welcome to join.
So
everyone
youth
is welcome.
Older
yes,
well.
I've had a lot of Yeah, not youth.
In terms of Instagram account, I mean, what is it?
Nontutsuko Mhlungu, yeah, it's my name. Nontutsuko
Okay.
Mhlungu, no underscore. It's just Nontutsuko Mhlungu. All of them, in fact, Facebook, LinkedIn as well. It's just Nontutsuko
Okay,
Mhlungu.
we need to spell it out for those who don't pick it up very, very quickly.
Will you
But
spell it?
maybe tag SAFM Radio and tag myself too.
Yes, I will do that. I'll do that. So it's Nontutsuko, Nontuthuko, Mhlungu, my surname, Mhlungu.
What's your personal brand? In three words,
empowerment, encourage, inspiring purpose. Although that last one is not one word, but yeah, I encourage, I empower, and I inspire purpose in other people.
Encourage, empower, and inspire. That could be South Africa as well if we really get our act together. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Ashraf. Thanks for having
Certainly
me.
going to check it out. 27th of June, and I'll check out your website. I'll check out your Instagram account, in fact, and see if I can join in too. Right, there we are. The founder of People with Purpose. That's Nontuthuko Mhlungu. Are you impressed enough to worry enough about your personal brand? In fact, what is your personal brand? The Greg House, 5:30. Here's the news headlines.
Quick look at the headlines. The PAC's joined the Government of National Unity. South African markets have rallied as news of the new Government of National Unity was received well. And a top aide of US President Joe Biden's arrived in Lebanon to discuss ways to avoid a wider conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound is queuing through Denver. The N1 southbound in four ways is queuing on the off-ramp to Winnie Mandela Drive. In Bedfordview, on the N3 northbound, a truck's lost its load just before Giluli's interchange, and the N12 R24 westbound has a crash reported before Giluli's interchange, queuing traffic on both routes. Greyston Drive eastbound in Sandton has a crash just before the M1 highway, and the N1 southbound in Midrand has a crash at Buccleuch interchange. All lanes are open. In KZN, on the R620 Marine Drive in Margate, there are roadworks with traffic restrictions in the Ovongo area. The N3 both ways has roadworks with traffic restrictions in the Camperdown area, and the N2 has roadworks with road construction activities between Umhlanga and Sibaya exits. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving as you approach the R300 interchange. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Cromboom Road. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. 35th Avenue in Eitzig has a crash reported at Owen Road, and the R302 Wellington Road in Versantekral has a crash reported at the R312 junction. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, let's get to sport. You mentioned Ronaldo earlier on.
Yeah. He's going to be playing today, and Portugal head coach Roberto Martinez says that Cristiano Ronaldo earned his place in the squad for the Euros. CR7 will become the first player to play 6 European Championships and most likely to start today against Turkey.
I must admit, Cristiano is in the national team in merit. Nobody gets into the national team just by having a name. Cristiano scored 51 goals in 50 games. Consistency that he had in his club, in his league, and he scored 9 goals in our qualification round. So for us, he's a goal scorer. For us, he's someone that he can make that final move, someone that he can really stretch defenders, they can really open spaces. Obviously, over the years, Cristiano has changed his way of playing slightly, but I can only say that Cristiano is in the national team in merit and probably the number.
Right, kickoff is at 9 p.m. and yes, it's Czechia, formerly known as Czech Republic. But at 6 o'clock, Turkey faces Georgia, and that's one to look forward to in terms of that 9 p.m. game. In rugby, Springbok prop Vincent Koch will earn his 50th Test cap on Saturday when the Boks face Wales at Twickenham. Koch was named in Rassie Erasmus Matchday 23. That will be captained by flanker Peter Steph du Toit and features 4 uncapped players: Adil van der Merwe, Schreiber and Jordan Hendrickse are the two uncapped players named in the run on team, while Ben Jason Dixon and Sasha Feinberg Mgomezulu are the two new faces on the replacement bench. Elsewhere, Manchester United will kick off the new Premier League season with a clash against Fulham at Old Trafford on the 16th of June, while Man City begin their title defence at Chelsea in the headline match of the weekend on the 18th of August. Then the Leicester City host Tottenham Hotspur in the first Monday night football of the season. In cricket, Proteas batter Reza Hendricks says that they will not take USA for granted as they prepare themselves for or to kick off the Super 8 stage tomorrow. The US are in the midst of a dream run, having qualified for the Super 8 in their debut appearance, and it's the first time these two sides meet in a T20, and the game starts at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. In tennis, former world number one Andy Murray says that retiring at either the Paris Olympics or Wimbledon would be a fitting end to his career. Murray has long hinted that he will likely not play much beyond this year. He said that it's unlikely that he will play at September's US Open, making the summer the potential finale of his career. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. That
should be interesting, eh? I'm just looking at Ronaldo doesn't stop playing. I mean, literally.
He doesn't stop playing. He doesn't stop playing. I think Roberto was just mentioning that he has like 50 goals just this season.
Yeah, and he played. He made his debut for Portugal in 2004, European champion. So 20 years later, he's like still one of the guys, one of the boys. Actually,
he's taking care of his body.
Well, lessons learned there. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, more sport from your side tomorrow. Thanks
Righty.
to me. Right, yeah.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the facts and figures you can count on with the MoneyWeb market update, as always, with Jimmy Moyaha. Hi, Jimmy.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm pretty well, and trust you good too.
Oh, what a day it's been. Oh,
why?
what
You've
a
been
day.
mentioning Telkom all day long. Are you going to do the same thing too? It's like all over the news. When business becomes mainstream, then you must know it's a big story. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm particularly looking forward to today's show. I mean, financial stocks almost a full 7% up on the day. It seemed as though nothing could stop South African markets today, following obviously the news around the government of national unity. One can argue various political aspects of it as to whether or not this is the right way forward to have the current structure and what's going on, but the market's absolutely pointing in one direction, and that is up. And we're going to look into that. We're going to look into those in a little bit, in a little while, but let me just give you a quick summary of what's coming up on the show. We have a Telkom conversation. I've got a conversation with the Telkom CEO around their full year's numbers. They reported numbers. They didn't declare a dividend, but the business is up from a cash flow perspective. The share price was up on the day. It seems as though things are back to normal, or seemingly in the right direction from Telkom. They're back in profits for the first time in a bit. So we're going to speak to the CEO there and try and understand how the business has been performing. Then we've got a conversation with the Gautrain Management Agency. They are finally proceeding with those plans to expand the Gautrain. We know this has been ongoing discussions for the greater part of more than 10 years, if memory serves me correctly. But it looks as though we finally are making headway there. So I've got a conversation with the CEO of the Gautrain Management Agency there to try and understand that. And then we've got a conversation with the National Clothing Retail Federation of South Africa to take a look at the involvement that SARS has gotten involved in. So the e-commerce space has been quite an interesting space, and we're looking at e-commerce providers like Temu or Temu, depending on which part of the world you come from, and Shein. These are international Chinese e-commerce retailing companies that have really come in and surprised our local companies. And SARS has come in from the tax perspective. It looks as though these international e-commerce sites have been getting away with paying a lot lower taxes, and now that tax has gone up from 20% to 45%. So consumers that buy from these sites are going to be affected quite significantly significantly from a pricing point of view, effective from 1 July. So we're going to speak to the NCRF around that and try and understand what's happening there. And then because it's Tuesdays, we either have Agri Tuesdays or Property Tuesday, and we've got Agri Tuesday this Tuesday, and we're taking a look at an interesting use that farmers are finding for their land. We've heard the likes of Eskom have conversations around the fact that to build a transmission line, they're going to need the participation of agricultural land and to be able to encroach on that land in some way or another. And we're actually going to be looking at the infrastructure that goes into electric vehicles, because farmers seem to be interested in helping out from that perspective and possibly making a little side income for themselves beyond the agricultural space. But as I said, markets have been absolutely flying today. Nothing could stop South African markets unless you were some of the mining companies. Let's start with some of the markets that didn't do, or some of the local companies that didn't have such a good day. Thungela was down about 5.8%. With the likes of Renigen down about 3.8, just under 4%. Brait was down again another 2%. They're back. They're still below that R1 share price level. Karoo was down about 4.4%. And if we look at Anglo Gold, Anglo was down 1.5. Anglo Gold down 1.4%. Even EOH had a red day, but I'm going to leave it at that, because everything else, almost everything else, was in the green, and not slightly in the green, but significantly in the green. I think on the markets that were in the positive side of it, very few of them were less than 1%. And so we'll skip to the ones that did sort of north of 5% or more, right? So the JSE itself did 5%. As a company, Remgro did 5.4%, Santam 5.6%, Discovery almost 6%, Woolies 6%, and then the banks, well, actually rather Mr. Price 6.4%, and then the banks began. Standard Bank 6.5% in the green, Nedbank 7% in the green, Dis-Chem 7% in the green, Shoprite 8% in the green, Sanlam 8.8%, almost 9%, Clicks 9% in the green, the Supergroup 9%, Capitec 9% to the upside, Sasol 10%. So it's very difficult to say that the market did not like the reaction that it's had to the announcement of Government of National Unity. And if we have a look at the Rand price and how that's strengthened as well, the Rand sitting at 18 Rand 8 cents at the moment, gaining 1% against the dollar, sitting at about 22.95 against the pound, below 23 Rand, 19.41 against the euro, below 20 Rand there, 12 Rand and 2 cents against the Australian dollar, briefly was below 12 Rand against the Australian dollar at some point. So South African markets very, very clearly loving this reaction. The All Share finishing up 3.5% on the day, with financials obviously leading the charge there, 6.7% in the green, industrials 2.4% in the green. Really, really stellar day for local markets. If we look at some of the international markets quickly, Sydney up almost a full percent, Hong Kong down 0.1%, with mainland China 0.5% in the green, Nikkei in Tokyo up a full percent. European markets, France was up 0.75%, Germany up 1/3%, and for the FTSE in London up 2/3%. US markets at the moment are sitting kind of flat, with the Nasdaq down 1/5%, but other markets kind of flat at the moment. And the gold price sitting at $2,326 an ounce, up almost 2/3%. Brent crude $85 up 1% there, not looking good for us for fuel prices. Platinum price still below $1,000, $974 an ounce. Palladium $887, up about 0.5%. Lots of insights to dig into. I've got a conversation with Chantal Marx just after 6 around the reactions that the markets have had and whether this is a short-term reaction or we're going to see even further upsides. So we'll be back a little later on just after 6 for that. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Absolutely. Great. Looking forward to your show 6 to 7 as it is every single weekday. Well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but not the Friday, as I'm certainly aware of. Okay, let's get to other issues. In fact, we'll take some calls as well. Perhaps you want to respond to the issue of national purpose that we speak about. Then the conversation I had with Prof. Stephen Friedman saying it's certainly not a government of national unity, but it doesn't mean it's a waste. He said it raises lots of issues about what can work and what can't work. And then you may be aware of that open letter conversation I had with Dr. David Matsanga, both of them up as a podcast, as well as that rather fascinating chat I had with the Deputy Speaker, the newly elected Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Dr. Annelie Lottrit. And then news now that we've just heard, the PAC joining in on the government of national unity. Okay, I'll take calls. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes and text right after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's get some voice notes. Here's another one about. Let me sort this out. Okay, so there's a comment about, we talked about cost of inauguration and other issues. How's this one?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. The amount of money that we're spending on this inauguration, it's absolutely amazing. I'm just wondering whether the 100 million rand that Naledi Pandor sent over to New York for a building that didn't exist, whether we're going to recoup that after she leaves. And all the people that are invited, all the governments that are coming, do they have a 50% female representation in their parliaments? I wonder, Cuba, Zimbabwe, Russia, China, all of these places. Is there a 50% female representation? Because we colluding with them, but you force our companies here in South Africa to have 50%. My word.
So what do we do then?
Cape Town.
But do we not invite them then, Mark? I'm just trying to think. You think every other country is like South Africa? Clearly not the case. I can think of just about all the countries in the world that do not resemble us in any way. Do we then say we don't talk to them at all? We don't even invite them? I don't think so. Just a thought there. Here's another one about the cabinet, right?
Good day, Ashraf and the SAFM listeners. I think all South Africans would appreciate a very strategic cabinet and I think a more reduced number. But in all of that, I think with this seventh administration, one of the key things that needs to be looked at is upon strategic ministries. Ministries such as, Oceans Economy Ministry or a Maritime Shipping and Affairs Ministry. Because these are the strategic ministries that we believe South Africa really in the seventh administration would rely on in making sure that we move this country forward.
Well, there you are. Interesting one. I must tell you, I'm not talking of this election, but I've always felt that I don't like this winner-take-all system where if a party gets a 50% plus, then they effectively then have the right to run everything. They appoint all the executive members, all the cabinet, everything, right? And effectively govern. Maybe there's an incentive for that. Like, if you score one goal is enough to win a game, and that gets you to win something. I've always felt personally it should reflect the percentages. Now, in fact, one understands now about the executive or the cabinet is going to reflect those that are forming part of, should I say it in inverted commas, government of national unity, would reflect the percentages. So between the ANC and the DA, there's the dominant members, and then one or two other small parties, it will reflect it. And I tend to like that. But I wonder whether you think that's the way it should always go. I'm not talking of this year, I'm talking about forever. Yeah, well, that's my dream. Katu in Midrand, hi.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon indeed. Right, go ahead. Your comments?
I think firstly we must congratulate the ANC really for being the pillars of democracy and accepting the results as they are. No liberation movement would accept a 17% drop and just literally accept a 40%. So for me, I think they've done a great job and I respect them for that.
Okay, but maybe just to butt it, I won't say no liberal because that implies every liberation movement would drop 17 will never ever respond as graciously as the ANC. Having said that, you could say many will not, and I agree with you. But to the point about the ANC particular, and I know I commented on this on my That's My Point feature when I opened the show a few weeks ago, to say absolutely, I'll tell you what, we've all been critical of service delivery in the ANC, but on this point, I think you're absolutely spot on. We must commend them. They've come out, they've admitted their faults, they've conceded, they've made errors, and they've gone about doing their job as a party that is still committed to democracy. And that, I think, does all go well.
Definitely. And my other comment was just around the MK, the EFF. I'm very disappointed because, you cannot be holding a VVVIP ticket to the blue train and you let it go off just because you don't like the driver. That's what the MK has done. Where in the world are you going to get a president to step down so that you can be part of government in 14 days? It's just a disappointment. 17% of how much do they have? 14% of the votes. and that's the kind of attitude you have. It clearly means you are not ready to govern, you are not ready to be a solution to South Africa, and we look forward to seeing you in the opposition benches.
Well, Kato, I must say I agree with you on that one as well. Because, I mean, look, let's take the ANC and the DA currently. Clearly, they're not chommies. They're going to have to work together, although ideologically they differ on many reasons, and Stephen Friedman spoke about that earlier. You can listen to the podcast of that. But in the negotiation, therefore, you have to accept that you have to give and take. But if you certainly tell a party that your party that's got 40% of the votes, not a majority, but the most votes of any single party, well, we won't talk to you if you have the president, your president must get knocked off first, it's clearly not going to happen. It just won't happen anywhere in the world. So I completely concur. All right, Katu, thanks for that call. Let's get another call. We should be chatting to the PAC representative pretty shortly, by the way. Cleo in Mofolo. Hi, Cleo.
Hi, thank you, Ashraf. First time talking to you.
Well, welcome to the show. Welcome to the National Pulse.
I think we should agree to the concept of the national of government unity, because those who are forming the government have the legitimacy. We gave them the legitimacy, and therefore they are in their rightful space. But I think what we should be worried about, will this be a credible government? Will they have credibility? That should be our worry. But the legitimacy to form the government of national unity, they have that. And on answering the purpose, I think we should be a government that serves. That should be the purpose. And there are a number of things. It's just that I don't have time. I was going to explain. The government must start first by building the state capacity and use that to invest in growth and at the same time mobilize society as well as build the institution.
Well, I agree with you. Thanks for that. I think for me, it's not so much whether they have credibility. I think the government, whether it's the one party or the five parties that are together or 6 or 7, I think they've got credibility by and large, in spite of some people complaining. I think overall that election is overwhelmingly free and fair. That's my thought about it. I think so. The credibility is not the issue. For me, the biggest concern I've got is these differing parties' commitment to wanting to work together and to actually work together. And no matter how different they are ideologically, can they really work together? And I really want them to work together, because I didn't choose for them to be a government of national unity, but that's what they've been delivered by the electorate. So now that they're there, I certainly want that to happen. Okay, so that's my thought. Thanks for that call, Cleo. We're chatting we'll chat to the PAC in a moment. Thank you.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, we often say a week is a long time in politics. You can actually say a weekend is a long time in politics. Certainly with regard to the PAC, my understanding is a few days ago, the PAC outside of the government of national unity, but certainly signing with other parties in what is called the Progressive Alliance. A few days later, we now hear that the PAC, are part of the government of national unity. Let's get confirmation of that with Apapue, the PAC Secretary General. Good chatting to you, and thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
No, thank you, and greetings to all your listeners.
All right, so confirm this. You're part of the government of national unity?
The PAC has decided that we should take part in the government of national unity, and our decision is informed by the fact that we believe that we should work hard towards steering the right-wing learning tendencies in this new formation that is going to be. We believe that we should put firmly the issue of the land restitution to the African people. We believe that all matters that affect African people should be occupying the center stage in this. And we believe that by us participating in this, we can be able to do that.
So why would you be so confident that you would do so as part of the GNU, but a minority party relatively compared to the others, right? Versus raising the same issues as opposition in Parliament?
We believe that we've got ideological clarity. Our historical credentials, our liberation credentials speaks for themselves. We believe that we've got superior logic, and we believe that in us participating in this, we bring that to this, and we believe that we can be able to steer away this new government from right wing.
Okay, you didn't think so. You didn't think so a few days ago, right? Because you were not part of the GNU a few days ago. What changed?
You said that's a mistake that many people were making. When we were part of the Progressive Forum, we said we wanted to offer the ANC an alternative. That ANC, they should know that beside these other formations that have colonial past, we are available to come together with them to form a government that will advance all the gains that has thus far been attained in this country. But the ANC has since not accepted that, hence the change of our mind that probably because we believe that we have this superior logic, we can still participate in any platform, in any situation, and be able to advance what the African people require.
Okay, so would you, just for the record, would you still be part of a progressive or the progressive forum that would include the EFF and Al Jamar and the MK party too?
Yes, definitely. And us participating in this does not take away our independence, does not take away our revolutionary position in terms of all matters that affect the country. We remain an independent organization with all characteristics of a true liberation movement.
Okay, those parties I mentioned, have they, they're obviously aware of what's happened. Have they commented on that to you? Have they spoken to you?
No, we're still engaged with them. Earlier on in the morning, I had informed them that there will be engagements with the ANC this morning, and I will give them a feedback, and I will also give the public what is the PAC position.
You made the point earlier on that you want to effectively be this opposition, if I can call it that, that's my words, to right-wing tendencies within the GNU. So you're effectively going to work with them, but you find that if the ANC is the centrist party, then there's too much of the right wing. How do you intend doing that in practical terms? Because you are going to be chommies.
As I said, we firmly believe, and strongly so, that we've got ideological clarity. We firmly believe that our reasoning, our logic is superior, and we believe that we can meet any other party on the basis of equality, on the basis of us being able to convince them of the backwardness of their ideas.
So how do you intend doing that with your superior logic if the same superior logic was unable to convince outside a small number of people to vote for the PAC nationwide in the election?
The small number of the PAC that has voted the PAC, that it does enable us to be participant in this broader scheme of things. And with that number, we believe that we can do more.
Yeah. Give me an example of the land question. I mean, what would be your pitch to the ANC and to the DA, for example? And how would you address the DA and the IFP on the issue of land?
For us, we are not looking into a particular political party that will address. We will address the collective as it stands. That will be a government as it has been formed, and we will address them. And as I said, and we've got a wealth of experience, having been participating in Parliament for the last 30 years, having been in the liberation struggle for well over 65 years, and we believe that wealth of experience and knowledge would assist us in making sure that we can convince those that are still having backward ideas that are going to take this country back, and be able to yes.
What would you, just lastly, what would you tell the PA, sorry, what would you tell the MK party and the EFF in terms of potentially joining the government of national unity? Would you talk to them about it?
All other parties are independent from each other. They have got their own structures. They've got their own way of making a decision for their own structures and constituencies. And we believe that the leadership in this particular organization have the capacity to do that. All that we can do is to continue to talk to them on issues of mutual interest, on issues where we believe that we can have common programs, as in the progressive forces.
And just one quick line to end up. Do you think it is a government of national unity as opposed to a coalition?
For us, those are just semantics. Whether you call them government of national unity or a coalition or whatever, the fact of the matter is that we need a structure that will take the country forward. We will not get into that space of having to argue around what is this animal all about. All that we know is that it's a structure that is going to govern this country.
And that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you for your time. Apapue, the PAC Secretary General, confirming that they'd be part of the government of national unity, but they're still part of the of that alliance, that the Progressive Alliance, the Progressive Forum that was discussed. I mean, that's an informal forum, but officially part of the government of national unity as of today. But in terms of semantics, it is just that. It says we need to take the country forward. Thanks to the team. Thanks to all of you. We'll do it again tomorrow. Love to connect with you on air, on social media as well. Follow me, follow SAFM Radio, and the team, Patrick, Tumi, Tebogo, or Keys as we know him, Fusani, as well as Temba Dlamini. Until tomorrow then, with the National Pulse right now, it's 6 o'clock. It's the news with Greg Hose.
Thank you again, Ashraf. PAC joins the GNU in a boost in SA markets. Good evening. The PAC's joined the government of national unity. Close sources have confirmed this to SABC News. The PAC joins the ANC, DA, IFP, the Good Party and the PA in the multi-party